Chapter 603, One Sword Killer Attack. When Tang Yuyu saw Lin Feng's incredible fire, she knew that it was Lin Feng's skill because it could attract sunlight. That skill was probably a Tian-level skill. It seems like I'm not the only one who underestimated him. His country did the same while he was rising, thought Tang Yuyu. All the members of the Deshu clan were fixedly staring at Lin Feng. How come he was becoming stronger and stronger? "Let's go," said Lin Feng loudly. Even though fire was still burning around his body, he didn't want to keep fighting. He moved back to Xiaoya and grabbed her. Tang Yuyu and Yunfei Yang were a bit surprised but understood why Lin Feng wanted to leave things that way. Even though they were strong, staying there would still be too dangerous. The opponents were only of the 6th and 7th Xianqi layer, but there were stronger ones to come. Besides, Tang Yu had heard a lot about the Deshu clan of Micheng. She knew that they had some cultivators of the Tianqi layer. The cultivators they had just defeated were only the tip of the iceberg. Those people were just vanguards sent to find them. The really strong ones were sure to follow. Lin Feng used his pure qi to rise up in the air. He was surrounded by the light of his pure qi. Lin Feng was moving very fast even though he was carrying Xiaoya. Those ferocious, wild beasts couldn't catch up to him that easily. Tang Yuyu was just as fast, actually faster than Lin Feng and Yunfei Yang, but she didn't want to leave without waiting for them, so she kept their pace. Even while escaping, they weren't too worried. They appeared to be moving gracefully. The people of the Deshu clan moved back to gather with the other strong cultivators. They didn't feel like separating their group. Those from Dragon Mountain had been extremely far from the battle. They caught up to see fireballs and hear several horrible shrieks ensue. After that, the people from the Deshu clan moved back. They were probably informing the stronger cultivators of their clan of what had just happened. Zhu Nemoshi frowned. Lin Feng had killed Miss Deshu. He hadn't anticipated that. Besides, now those people were leaving to inform their superiors. Lin Feng was going to be in a great deal of danger. Maybe I should help them, thought Zhu Nemoshi. He thought about it some more and then he began running. His body turned into an arrow which streaked through the sky. He looked like a beam of light. 3 cultivators of the Deshu clan looked relieved. They were also riding ferocious, wild beasts. They were about to fly back to their companions when a beam of light appeared in front of them along with terrifying deadly energy. "Stay here," said Zhu Nemoshi indifferently. He punched towards that person and his fist crashed onto his chest. The opponent shook violently from head to foot. His internal organs and bones had all broken into pieces. Boom! Zhu Nemoshi then used that person as a step and jumped on the beast's back, which roared violently. He then continued moving forwards at full speed. How audacious, thought the other two when they saw that someone else was attacking them. Their facial expressions looked ice-cold and were filled with murder. "You two stay here as well," said Zhu Nemoshi, again indifferently. He raised both his hands and released a monstrous pure qi in a flash. A terrifying qi of earth and sky suddenly mixed with his pure qi and attacked the 2 beasts they were riding. Their entire bodies were ripped apart and their wings cut off. Air-cut kill? People from Dragon Mountain were all astonished. That air-cut kill was monstrously powerful. Slash. As expected, those 2 air-cut kill attacks immediately lacerated the air. It seemed like the atmosphere had separated the sky from the ground. Those 2 beasts had no chance to survive. How strong, thought everybody shivering. Zhu Nemoshi was the best cultivator of Dragon Mountain. Of course he was extremely strong. According to the rumors, Zhu Nemoshi had never used his spirit during battles. He didn't need to use it because he was too strong. Nobody knew what his spirit was. Zhu Nemoshi killed those 3 and then gazed into the distance. He began flying again towards Lin Feng and the others. Those from Dragon Mountain started moving as well. Their silhouettes were flickering one after the other. There was now a crowd following the action. All of them were wondering what was going to happen this time. Maybe one of the participants of the competition would die before it even began. If someone was watching from overhead, they would see a large line from Lin Feng back to the Dragon Mountain people. There was a succession of cultivators running one after the other. The wind was picking up with all the cultivators' influence. The distance Lin Feng and company ran was vast, but then, "You can't escape." Behind Lin Feng, some people from the Dashu clan were shouting they hadn't been chasing them at full speed because Lin Feng and his friends' pure chi couldn't be infinite. Eventually they could wear them down. They didn't have to hurry, they just had to keep an eye on them, that was enough. It had been a long time since someone had dared infuriate the Dashu clan in Micheng. But this time, they surprisingly had killed Miss Dashu. They really wanted to die. "Who said we were escaping?" said Lin Feng while releasing his terrifying fire again. With the wind, his fire became even more intense and dazzling. The sunlight was shining upon his body. It was incredible. Everybody stopped flying in the sky. It seemed like Tang Yuyu, Lin Feng and Yunfei Yang's hearts were all interconnected. They stopped at exactly the same time. They also turned around at the same time and confronted those who had been running after them. "Tang Yuyu, Yunfei Yang, we don't have time, so don't blame for being rude. Tang Yuyu, take him. Yunfei Yang, help me protect Xiaoya," said Lin Feng, surrounded by flames. Tang Yuyu was going to fight against their leader, that's what Lin Feng was asking. He was monstrously strong, he had broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer. Lin Feng couldn't defeat him, however, Tang Yuyu had also broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer. The others were composed of one cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer and a bunch of cultivators of the 5th and 6th Xianqi layers. "No problem," said Yunfei Yang. Tang Yuyu made a step forwards, releasing some terrifying battle energy. The cultivator of the 8th Xianqi layer groaned coldly as he moved to challenge her. He was going to fight against Tang Yuyu. "You've been running after us for a while, it's now time to end this all," said Lin Feng coldly. He moved and a roaring sound spread through air. It was his purple spirit. It then turned into a boundless lake and blotted out the sky, swallowing everybody. "9 Palace Dragon Formation," shouted Lin Feng furiously. In a flash, the purple light invaded the whole region and the illusion imprisoned the beasts and the cultivators on their backs. They were all in different rooms. "Let's crush it together," said someone in the illusion. A terrifying chi emerged in the illusion. Lin Feng couldn't imprison so many strong cultivators in his illusion. "Sword," shouted Lin Feng. A fire sword appeared in his hand, the flames coming off it were just as resplendent as Lin Feng's. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying chi invaded the entire atmosphere. Those who had just been imprisoned in the illusion rose up in the air. Die. When they came out of the illusion, they saw Lin Feng waiting for them. Their hearts started pounding. Lin Feng's sword was so dazzling that they couldn't open their eyes. It was a mixture of a deadly sword and a great radiant sword. It was also filled with sword determination. When he raised the sword, they all died. Those who had been too fast and had thrown themselves at Lin Feng were first. They couldn't stop such a terrifying sword. Chapter 604, Willing to Fight. Sword determination, fire determination. They all became much stronger. "I wonder what level they are now," thought Lin Feng when he realized his determination was so powerful. With one sword attack filled with fire and deadly energy, he had been able to kill all those people, including a cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer. Back. Lin Feng moved his hand and recalled his purple spirit back into his body. Then the formation disappeared and the few people of Dashu clan reappeared. "You want me to die, so I return the favor." Lin Feng made a step forward and raised his sword towards the sky. The sunshine shone upon it and his body. All around him people could sense that the temperature had increased. Oh no, some people's facial expressions drastically changed. That sword also contained deadly energy. Lacerate. Lin Feng jumped into the middle of their group. The sun was reflecting red off of his sword. Die. Someone attacked Lin Feng from behind. His speed was incredible. Lin Feng immediately felt oppressed. Although he was surprised, he made the strength of the Harukas rotate 5,000 times in his back. Then a muffled sound spread in the air. That person's hand crashed onto Lin Feng's back, but Lin Feng was still standing steadily. A black physical strength was flowing in his back. He turned around to see the person attacking him had eyes filled with murder. His heart continued pounding. Die. Lin Feng imbued fire chu into his left fist and punched that person's chest. That person's chest quickly burnt and a black hole appeared. That person was terrified. Go. Lin Feng shook his hand, and in a flash, that person burnt down to ashes. Lin Feng was still holding his fire sword as he turned around. He moved like the wind, raising his sword to the west and created a setting sun sword. It didn't look as resplendent and hot as a radiant sword, but it was as red as blood. It was filled with death. Yun Fei Yang was watching Lin Feng, alone with his sword. He was lacerating everything and everyone around him. With each step someone else died. All those cultivators of the 6th Xianqi layer were getting slaughtered and had no way to block him. Lin Feng knew how to fuse with the earth for a long time already, and now that he could use sword determination, he was indomitable. Apart from that power, he also had his terrifying pure qi fire, which was next to impossible to extinguish. "So that's your real strength," said Yun Fei Yang in a low voice while watching Lin Feng. That Lin Feng was the same as he was before. Natural, free, unrestrained, proud, his sword was annihilating everything and everyone. If anyone dared offend him, he would kill them and nobody would be let off. In that cold and cruel world, Lin Feng had to be a real killer. In this world he learnt and practiced cultivation with a passion. His heart was becoming wider as he became more open-minded. He was understanding the world in which he was living better through each experience. Even though he was becoming a better person, when facing such people he had to be an altruist. He had to be cruel and cold to murder them. "Let's go." Lin Feng was terrifying as he slaughtered cultivators of the 6th Xianqi layer. He only had the strength of the 5th Xianqi layer, but he could slaughter those cultivators with ease. One attack sufficed. They couldn't escape from him and they couldn't stop him. They didn't realize they had challenged a death god. Those people were dying one after the other without the hope to escape. "Go? Go where?" said Lin Feng, smiling coldly. They had been chasing him, but now they wanted to escape. It was too late. Lin Feng made a step and pure qi whistled in the air. He was quick. The strength of the Harukas and his fire were mixing together. His fist crashed onto the one who had just said he wanted to leave. Like the others, he immediately burnt along with the ferocious wild beast he was riding. "Stop!" shouted someone loudly and furiously in the distance. That voice made Lin Feng's head shake. He looked into the distance and saw a group of people surfing in the air. He froze. Those people were extremely fast. It was only a second, but they were next to him. Lin Feng hadn't been escaping before, he was just trying to find another place to fight and kill all those people. Unfortunately, in this short time, he hadn't killed all of them. One of them was left and the strong cultivators of the Dashu clan had already arrived, which put Lin Feng in a difficult situation. "The strong cultivators of my clan are here now. They will definitely kill you," said the one Lin Feng was about to kill. He was sneering at Lin Feng. He and his companions had come to encircle Lin Feng, but all the others had died. Now he was the last one left. His silhouette flickered, his ferocious wild beast beat its wings and moved away. "Even if I'm going to die, I can promise you that you will die before me," said Lin Feng, raising his sword, which he held with both hands. His sword was pointing to the sky. All around it, the atmosphere completely changed. It was suddenly filled with sword qi, sword energy, and sword determination. "Die!" Both of his hands descended, his sword twinkled, and a magnificent bright trail appeared behind his sword. The one who was trying to run towards his companions raised his head and hopelessness invaded his eyes. The sword descended swiftly and that person died. Lin Feng had cut that person and his beast into two. "Bastard!" shouted someone furiously. A shadow was moving towards Lin Feng at full speed. Boom! That shadow was emitting rumbling sounds. It was annihilating everything in the air on its way to Lin Feng. That person wasn't far from Lin Feng at all. That person wasn't the only one, many other silhouettes were following. They were all riding ferocious, wild beasts, but these guys' qi was much stronger than those Lin Feng had just fought against. The weakest people in that group had broken through to the 6th and 7th Xianqi layers, and there were a few dozen of them. There were a few cultivators of the 8th Xianqi layer. As far as the leader of the group was concerned, he had broken through to the 9th Xianqi layer. He was looking at Lin Feng in a despising way. However young that person was, he looked enigmatic and unfathomable. He must have only been about 30 years old. The people of the Deshu clan really had amazing cultivators. Because Lin Feng had killed Miss Deshu, they had to kill Lin Feng and his friends. The leader looked at all the corpses and then stared at Lin Feng. Very well, it's been a long time since anyone dared offend the Deshu clan. You are brave and audacious. That person's eyes looked ice-cold. He wasn't going to let Lin Feng off. Lin Feng, Tang Yuyu and Yun Fei Yang were standing together waiting for them to act. How horrible! How were they going to cope with all those strong cultivators? In the distance, several silhouettes were flickering. Jun Emoshi and some others were rushing over. When they saw the cultivators in the sky, they were speechless. What a monstrous group of people! You three, cripple your own cultivation. I don't need to attack you myself. Of course, if you don't cripple your own cultivation, I will attack you. I won't just cripple your cultivation, the result will be much scarier, said that person. He despised Lin Feng and his friends. He wanted them to cripple their own cultivation and then he would bring them back to the Deshu clan as he had been told. Lin Feng was holding sword obliquely and he raised his head. We will never cripple our cultivation, but if you want to fight, let's fight, said Lin Feng resolutely. If he had nowhere to go, then he could only fight to the death. He hadn't thought that such a thing would happen to him in Miqing, but nothing could be changed. He remained fearless and without regret. If he fought and died during a battle, he didn't care. Tang Yuyu looked absolutely emotionless as well, but it was clear that she wasn't going to cripple her own cultivation either. She would never do such a thing. You are all pretty good, I see, said the 30-year-old man while releasing some terrifying qi which oppressed Lin Feng and his friends. Some of the people from Dragon Mountain got excited while some others frowned. Jun Emoshi looked calm and solemn as he walked forward slowly. Then he rose up in the air. If you want to fight, don't forget me, said Jun Emoshi. And me, said Jian Qin, whose body rose up in the air like a sword. Chapter 605. Shengong. Jun Emoshi, Tang Yuyu and Jian Qin were running the fastest. They all guessed that he was the real Lin Feng after watching the battle. Although the events leading to Lin Feng's disappearance were very mysterious, he had not died. He snuck his way back into the competition using another alias and some mysterious skill. There was a group of people from Dragon Mountain following those three. They were surprised to see Jun Emoshi, Tang Yuyu and Jian Qin helping Lin Feng against the terrifying Deshu clan. The group from the Deshu clan were also surprised. They wanted to fight. But they were more than willing to grant them their deaths. Would anyone else like to go against us? Asked the leader of the Deshu clan group. He was glancing at the people from Dragon Mountain coldly. Qing Meng Exen smiled resplendently and looked at Lin Feng. She found him funny, as well as interesting. She had known that this Lin Feng was the real Lin Feng since Lan Jiao had gone to see Lin Feng that night. What she didn't know was that Lin Feng was so strong. He had broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer and could easily kill cultivators of the 6th Xianqi layer. Even Jun Emoshi is going to fight. Could anything happen? Said Qing Meng Xin with a resplendent smile on her face. We have come from Dragon Mountain to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu. If you kill us, who will bear the responsibility? The leader of the group of people from the Deshu clan frowned and his facial expression slightly changed. They had come from Dragon Mountain to participate to the great competition of Shuiyu? Lin Feng was surprised to see their leaders change in mood. What would he be responsible for? Was there someone protecting the participants of the great competition of Shuiyu? Someone strong enough to discourage the Deshu clan? You may be participating at the great competition of Shuiyu, but you killed my sister, said the leader of the group, sounding glum. She was rude and aggressive. If I hadn't killed her, she would have killed me. Should I accept such a thing? Said Lin Feng with a cold smile on his face. Hee. Qing Meng Exen smiled and said, no matter what, you can sort the problem out after the competition. If you try to before, Shengong will be furious. If something happens to the participants before the competition, no matter who you are, the Deshu clan or anyone else, Shengong? Lin Feng was surprised along with several others. What or who was Shengong? From Qing Meng Xian's tone of speech, one could guess that Shengong was stronger than the Deshu clan. Even they were scared to offend Shengong. When the leader of their group heard her, his facial expression drastically changed. He didn't seem as determined to kill as before. If they were all going to participate at the great competition, it meant that they were real heroes. The Dashu clan couldn't afford killing them, otherwise, Shin Gong would be furious. Even if we can't kill you all, we can kill the one who murdered Miss Dashu. Nothing will happen, said a voice in the distance. That person's voice came from very far away. The leader of the group of people from the Dashu clan was speechless. Who's that? Everybody was glancing right and left but couldn't see anyone. There was no Chi either. There was a voice but nobody else. Distant communication? Jun Emoshi frowned. Someone was talking to them from a very far distance, more than 50 kilometers. It meant that that person had broken through to the Tianqi layer. It was a strong cultivator of the Dashu clan. The leader of the group smiled. Finally, he looked at Lin Feng and said, "You're the one who killed my little sister, right?" "Indeed," replied Lin Feng resolutely. "I am the one who killed her." "Why are you saying that you had?" said Yun Fei Yang at that moment. He just arrived on Jun Emoshi's side and handed Xiaoya over to Jun Emoshi. On their side, they could be sure that nothing would happen to Jun Emoshi, especially since Shin Gong was there. They wouldn't dare attack the strongest person from Dragon Mountain, a cultivator considered as one of the two strongest participants at the competition. Lin Feng glanced at Yun Fei Yang surprised. Yun Fei Yang had quickly released some monstrous qi. He was fearless. Even if Yun Fei Yang was in danger, he didn't hesitate to kill those who threatened him. "Let's say we both killed her," said Lin Feng while smiling at Yun Fei Yang. Immediately after, they looked at the leader of the group. They didn't look scared at all. Even though Lin Feng looked sick with his mask, there was a special aura around his face. "Very good. You two will come back with me to the Dashu clan," said the leader. He then transformed into a beam of light moving towards Lin Feng and Yun Fei Yang. "You will not take anyone from Dragon Mountain with you," shouted Jun Emoshi furiously. He had turned into an illusion and collided with the leader of the group in the air. Boom! A muffled sound spread in the air. Their fists had collided. Immediately after, the crowd saw two silhouettes flicker over and over again. They were both dashing through the sky. They were so fast that the crowd could barely follow them with their eyes. So fast. They were so fast, people couldn't even see them. Boom, boom, boom. The atmosphere kept vibrating and their silhouettes constantly looked like beams of light. As they fought, strong winds were forming in the air. Lin Feng walked to Xiaoya and grabbed her hand. He then raised his head and watched the two fighters. He felt touched. Jun Emoshi was fighting for him. Slash, slash, slash. A black hand was moving towards Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu jumped and raised her fist, destroying that black hand. "Give us those two," shouted the leader of the group furiously. Tang Yuyu looked solemn. Her clothes were fluttering in the wind and she looked particularly cold. "No need," said Qing Meng Xen. She then jumped into the air. She also wanted to protect Lin Feng. She even smiled at him and said, "I'm helping you again, you must remember me." She then added a particularly seductive smile. Tang Yuyu was on Lin Feng's right and Qing Meng Xen was on his left. One was blazing hot like fire and the other was as cold as ice, but the qi they started releasing was of the same level. A terribly oppressive force emerged in the air and all the cultivators of the Dashu clan immediately threw themselves at Lin Feng. They wanted to kidnap Lin Feng and Yun Fei Yang. "That's enough," said someone at that moment. Everybody stopped surprised. The atmosphere became quite apocalyptic and a terrifying qi rolled in the air from the distance as a face appeared. "That's enough. The Dashu clan made a mistake first. Miss Dashu offended people and respected no rules. She chased people from Dragon Mountain to kill them and had instead been killed. You can avenge her but not before the competition. I will not tolerate anything like that. Now all of you go back." That person was talking darkly. He was giving everybody an order that nobody could argue. Jun Emoshi and the leader of the group stopped fighting. They all understood something. That voice had to do something with Shin Gong. The members of the Dashu clan were stupefied. Even though they really wanted to kill those people, they couldn't. They didn't dare say anything superfluous either. They only nodded and said, "We made a mistake, sorry. We're going to leave immediately." The person who spoke turned around and glanced at Jun Emoshi. Very early tomorrow morning, go to Duotian mountain chain for the great competition of Shuiyu. Then, the atmosphere vibrated as everything became normal again. That person left a lasting impression. Early tomorrow morning, for the great competition of Shuiyu. In the entire region, that person's voice was resonating. He had said it loud enough for everybody to hear him. The competition was finally going to start. What a terrifying soul chi, thought Lin Feng while looking at that person. What were the mysteries of Mi Cheng? How come there were so many strong cultivators here? Besides, what or who was Shengong? Chapter 606. Duotian Mountain Chain. Everybody in Mi Cheng knew that tomorrow they had to go to Duotian for the great competition of Shuiyu. It was finally starting. It seems like the competition is organized by a third party because the other empires don't know the precise starting time either. No wonder, thought Lin Feng. There were 4 empires at the great competition of Shuiyu. However, those few words didn't suffice to explain it all. That Shengong didn't allow anyone to ruin the competition in any way. Nobody could kill the participants, not even the Deshu clan. One sentence had them with their tails between their legs. Even the cultivator of the Tianqi layer of the Deshu clan hadn't said anything more. Nobody could disobey Shengong. The leader of the group of people from the Deshu clan glanced at Lin Feng and the others and was wanting to say something. He didn't want to disobey Shengong's orders. After the great competition of Shuiyu, if you are still alive we will meet again, he said coldly and then left. Every members of the Deshu clan looked ice cold. This time, Lin Feng and his friends had been lucky. Shengong had saved them this time, but after the competition the Deshu clan wouldn't let them off. They had killed Miss Deshu and so many others from their Deshu clan. This time they weren't able to get their revenge, and had lost so many strong cultivators trying. They wouldn't forget about this. They would get their revenge even if it meant waiting. Lin Feng watched as they all disappeared, one after the other. Lin Feng could finally take a breath and relax. There wouldn't be any more problems until the competition now. The first challenge was a huge free-for-all fight. People who were extremely cruel and dangerous would lurk on every side. Besides, there were even some from Dragon Mountain and countries under its jurisdiction who wanted to try and kill him. Only after the death of a certain number of people would he be able to move on to the second round. Lin Feng looked at Jun Emoshi, Tang Yuyu, Qing Meng Xian and Jian Chen and nodded to them gratefully. They had been ready to fight for him. If Shengong hadn't appeared, the Deshu clan wouldn't have let him off and Lin Feng would have had no choice but to use his evil swords again. Alright, let's forget about what happened today and instead get ready for the competition. Let's go to Duotian, said Jun Emoshi as if nothing had happened and as if he hadn't helped Lin Feng at all. Everybody nodded. The most important thing for them was the great competition of Shuiyu. Tomorrow the great competition of Shuiyu would finally start, and they had been waiting for that moment for so long. Many were terribly excited and high-spirited thinking about it. If they survived and seized all the opportunities, they would progress and become extremely strong cultivators. Jun Emoshi took out a memory jade and looked inside. A map of Mi Cheng then appeared in his head and he found the Duotian mountain chain on it. He put the memory jade away and said, "Let's go." Jun Emoshi's silhouette then flickered and whistling sounds spread in the air. The other people from Dragon Mountain then followed him closely. They had never been to Mi Cheng before so they didn't know where the mountain chain was. They had to follow Jun Emoshi otherwise they would get lost. Lin Feng grabbed Xiaoya's hand, looked at Yun Fei Yang and said, "Let's go." Yun Fei Yang nodded and they left together. Dragon Mountain's large group of cultivators were flying towards Duotian. On Lin Feng's left in the air, there were people from Dragon Mountain. Some middle-aged man from Tianfeng looked at Lin Feng, smiled and said, "You haven't died, you're lucky but tomorrow the competition will start. I'm sure you won't have such luck then. Too bad for you, you're so old that you can't even participate to the great competition of Shuiyu. Otherwise you could have seen killing me personally." "Ha!" said Lin Feng mockingly, infuriating that person. Lin Feng was making fun of the man because he couldn't do anything to him. Even though that person's cultivation level was higher than Lin Feng's, he was already too old. Lin Feng was still young and famous, handsome and strong. In the future, he would be even stronger. The middle-aged man was making fun of Lin Feng without thinking. At the same age as him, Lin Feng would be infinitely stronger than he was. Killing people as strong as the middle-aged man would probably be extremely easy for Lin Feng. Lin Feng was humiliating him. What? It does not matter because my 7 envoys will kill you first at the great competition of Shuiyu. Get ready to die during the first round, said the middle-aged man coldly. He then rolled up his sleeves and flew further. You're always acting recklessly, said someone else coldly. It was Di Long. He had stopped talking a lot since what happened with Duan Wudao. However, he needed something to comfort him, so he was using Lin Feng to humiliate and insult. Since he had lost his dignity when facing Duan Wudao, he was trying to get it back by insulting others. Lin Feng turned his head and smiled at Di Long in an indifferent way. He didn't say anything though, he just smiled for a second and then turned his head again. Di Long was speechless and pulled a long face. He just remained silent again. Silence was even worse than insults. Lin Feng was humiliating him again by ignoring him. Don't think that you are strong because your cultivation level increased. It means nothing. You didn't die because you're lucky, it could only have been because other people protected you. During the first round of the great competition of Shuiyu, you will die. After saying that, Di Long also flew faster and passed in front of Lin Feng. It seems like many people want to kill you, said Yun Fei Yang while laughing and looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned. Some of the people from Shuiyu wanted him to die. Then those people from Tianfeng had attacked him by surprise in the middle of the night. He didn't understand the situation very clearly, but he knew that now, there were still some people who wanted him dead. Good, he precisely wanted to kill them too. Apart from the people from Dragon Mountain, there were those from the 3 other empires and even people from Mi Cheng who were rushing over to Duo Tian. The great competition of Shuiyu was about to start. Everybody from everywhere wanted to see it. In the middle of the Duo Tian mountain chain, there were 8 mountains. Those 8 mountains were very strange because their peaks were larger than their base, as if they had been turned upside down by someone, or some deities. It was a most famous place in Duo Tian. Duo Tian mountain chain. In the air, a silhouette descended from the sky like a god. That person's qi was monstrously powerful. It was Di Ling, possessor of the firmament blood. Come out, shouted Di Ling. Immediately another silhouette appeared at the top of another of the 8 mountains. It was Duan Wudao from Shuiyu. You arrived early. An evil qi emerged in the sky as well as some black clouds. A black qi was surrounding a gigantic coffin and had surrounded another of the mountains. A loud noise emerged in the air and a silhouette came out of the coffin. It was obviously Shui Sha from Black Wings. On another mountain there was the qi of a dead tree. Ku Yao Tong appeared. The qi of a sword then whistled in the air and 7 lights appeared. The sound of a zither had also spread in the air. Qi Qing Jian Ling Shao and Lu Yuqin Yu Shao Shao also arrived. On the 7th mountain, there was Mo. The 7 geniuses had arrived first. Chapter 607. Before the start, the 7 geniuses had all claimed their mountains. Junimo, she was the only one who hadn't arrived. In the air, many silhouettes flickered. These cultivators wanted to go to the top of those mountains, but since there were those scary geniuses there already, they wouldn't. They were at first surprised but immediately gave up the idea. Instead, they just sat upon on some stones. Around the mountain chain, many silhouettes were coming. They were the people from Dragon Mountain. They were running in the air and looking at the mountains. Those mountains were like huge stone pillars. The gaps between them were like huge precipices. From those mountains one could enjoy magnificent sights. However, between those mountains the ground was extremely flat and extremely vast. It looked like a palace with a mysterious qi. Even though that mountain chain was famous in Micheng, people from Micheng had never gone to the palace between the mountains. It seemed like a mysterious place. Perhaps that Shengong, whatever it was, could go there. That Shengong was something or someone too mysterious. What a vast mountain chain, thought Lin Feng. The sight was incredible. Looking up, it looked like another world. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the 8 mountains and the 7 people on them. Lin Feng turned to Jun Emoshi and said, "There's one mountain for you too." Jun Emoshi looked at the mountain, shook his head and said, "It's fine if we go to any mountain." He then jumped onto a normal mountain which looked like a stone pillar. Lin Feng smiled, held Xiao Ye's hand and jumped on the same mountain as Jun Emoshi. Then Yun Fei Yang, Jian Chen, Tang Yuyu and Qing Meng Xan also followed them. People from Tian Feng chose another mountain. Since they were in Duo Tian, they didn't need to stay with people from other countries. Even though they were under the jurisdiction of Dragon Mountain, they liked nobody else. As far as they were concerned, everyone else were their enemies. They were too inclusive. The other people with them were just going to be a nuisance on their way during the great competition of Shuiyu. More people meant more competition. Even people from Dragon Mountain were enemies in their eyes. Maybe during the great competition of Shuiyu they would even have to kill people from Dragon Mountain. There were more and more people in Duo Tian. Even though the great competition of Shuiyu was going to start the day after, people were still rushing there because they were impatient. Everyone wanted a good seat. There are 81 stone pillar-like mountains in total which are in a 9x9 formation. All the mountains will be so filled with people that some will have to go down to observe, thought the crowd. There would be too many people. In less than 1 hour, there were already a few thousand there and mountain tops were being invaded. Except for where the mountain tops claimed by the strongest cultivators were. Concerning the 7 huge mountains, nobody was going to try. There was still a free one too, but nobody was stepping on it. Who knew what the consequences would be after that? No, there will be fights. Because people can't go down there, said Jun Emoshi to the person who had just said that if there wasn't enough space on mountain tops, people would have to go down. However, they couldn't go down into that mysterious valley, so the only solution would be to fight to get some space. Get lost. What makes you think you can be here? Jun Emoshi had just finished talking when someone had begun fighting. The crowd turned around and saw some people arguing at the top of a mountain. Surprisingly, there were some familiar faces, the Yu clan from Shuiyu. Yu Jian and Yu Qin were there too. We're here for the same thing, right? We want to see great battles. Why couldn't we watch the great competition of Shuiyu together? Wouldn't that be great and comfortable? Said that person while pulling a long face but not losing their temper. PFFFF, you came to watch the competition. We came because 2 people of our Yu clan are going to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu. Nothing gives you the right to sit with us. Piss off, said Yu Lu Shui while making a step forwards and releasing a monstrous amount of qi. They're going to join the great competition of Shuiyu? Some people were wordless. They looked at the 2 young people of the Yu clan. As expected, those 2 young men were extremely strong. Then that person and the others who were with him left. Yu Lu Shui looked proud of himself. 2 of the young men of their clan were going to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu. What pride, what an honor, what glory! Yu Jian, Yu Qin, there will be many strong cultivators at the competition, so you have to stay together and fight against them together. You will have no problem if you fight that way. During the 2nd round, give all you can and then you will be able to make it to the 3rd round. If you manage to stand on the fighting stage during the 3rd round, that is already amazing. When we go back to Shuiyu, you 2 will be the next most important people after the prince, Duan Wudao, said Yu Lu Shui to motivate his 2 young juniors. Yu Jian and Yu Qin nodded. They knew that they weren't that strong in comparison with other participants, but they were too. If they were careful enough, nothing would happen to them. They hoped that they would manage to survive the 1st round. You really think too highly of them. They are a joke, said Teng Wu Yao in a cold and detached way. He landed on their mountain and mocked them. Wu Qing was with him. Don't forget that Wu Qing is the 3rd high official, Yu Jian and Yu Qin only ranked 5th. That's the end of the ranking of the list. Since when does the ranking list mean anything? You will see after the competition, said Yu Lu Shui coldly. If they face Tian Ming they will have no chance, said someone else, which surprised Teng Wu Yao and Yu Lu Shui. They turned around and saw Yu Qing Shan looking extremely aggressive. Yu Tian Ming looked at them indifferently and said, nodding, if I face them, they will have no chance at all. They will never be able to win against me. So arrogant, said Wu Qing while groaning coldly like an animal. Too bad Lin Feng has disappeared, I wanted to fight against him. He had sufficient strength to fight against me, but I've never thought highly of you guys. Lin Feng was going places, said Yu Tianming. Lin Feng was surprised. Disappeared? He wasn't going to disappoint neither Yu Tianming nor Yu Qingshan. Back then, Yu Qingshan had still hoped that Yu Tianming would fight against Lin Feng for Duan Xanyi. Yu Tianming wasn't going to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu with the hope of becoming famous in Shuiyu. He didn't care about that. He wanted to become a monstrously strong cultivator in the entire empire. That was his goal. In the future, he would despise Shuiyu. Lin Feng was like that too. Besides, Lin Feng had to finish amongst the top 9 cultivators of the competition. As if Yu Jian had sensed that Lin Feng was looking at them, he turned his head. What are you looking at, you weak piece of trash? You're just extremely lucky to have made it so far and to be able to participate to the competition, said Yu Jian. His eyes looked like swords. Yu Tianming and Wu Qing were humiliating him and he didn't like it. Good thing Lin Feng was there so he could get angry back at them. Unfortunately, you won't be as lucky, said Lin Feng with a cold smile on his face. He then stopped looking at Yu Jian. Yu Jian was stupefied, but he released some deadly energy to show him his place. That Lin Feng really wanted to die. No need to argue with such people. Now, we need to rest and restore our vitality and energy. In one day, we will need it, said Yun Fei Yang while smiling indifferently. He then immediately sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. You're right, said Lin Feng while nodding. He also sat down cross-legged and entered into a trance. He ignored everything in his surroundings and his blood started flowing like a calm river. Chapter 608. The Magical Seeds. It was early in the morning and the atmosphere was gray. Some people were walking up already to break the eerie silence. The entire mountain chain was filled with people. Only 7 of the 8 strange mountains were occupied. People couldn't help but looked at those 7 geniuses. They were real geniuses. It was possible to see that from only looking at their chi. Besides them, there were many other cultivators on those 81 mountains which looked like stone pillars. They were either chatting or sitting cross-legged or standing proudly. Apart from those 8 mountains and 81 stone pillars, the other mountains surrounding the area were filled with people who looked like little insects in the far distance. There were too many people. Many hung off the slopes of the mountains. They would still be able to see the vast area that way, especially the flat area at the feet of the mountains. Everyone had guessed that the first round was going to start down there. Lin Feng opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt particularly well, like a newborn. He raised his head and looked at the sky. It was getting bright. It was finally going to start. Jun Imo Shi, Tang Yuyu, Qing Meng Xian and Yun Fei Yang also looked excited. They had been waiting for this day for such a long time. The great competition of Shuiyu, that wonderful event, was going to start and they had the chance to participate in it. There were only a few others with Jun Imo Shi on his mountain. Yet, nobody dared to take the final 8th strange mountain that was unoccupied. The sun gradually unveiled the entire area. Everybody looked at the sky. They couldn't wait for the competition to start. They couldn't believe it was about to start. Suddenly a hurricane appeared in the air. Rumbling sounds spread in the air. In the flat area at the bottom of the mountains, a silhouette appeared. It was an old man whose skin was as white as snow. His hair was snowy white. He looked very particular. After the first glance, one could never forget his odd appearance. That person then stood in the air above that flat area and looked at the crowd. People had the impression that time had stopped when the old man looked at them. He was particularly intimidating. He belongs to Shengong. People from Micheng had immediately guessed that he was a strong cultivator from Shengong. Let me introduce myself. I am an envoy of Shengong. My name is Shui Wucheng. I will be the one in charge of the first round of the great competition of Shuiyu. When he had began speaking, everybody had started whispering. Shengong? What was Shengong? Most people had never heard of Shengong. Was it a sphere of influence in Shuiyu? It seemed like Shengong was quite famous in Shuiyu. Now, the 4 empires have chosen some outstanding disciples to participate at the competition of Shuiyu. All of those geniuses will stand in front of me so that I can see you, said Shui Wucheng. In a flash, he rose high up in the air and moved to the east. "People from Dragon Mountain, come next to me," said Jun Emoshi. In a flash, a myriad of silhouettes flickered and they gathered behind and next to Jun Emoshi. "Xiaoya, please be careful and take care of yourself," said Lin Feng. Xiaoya nodded and said, "Bro, don't worry about me, just take of yourself and be careful." "Alright, I'm off," said Lin Feng. His body emitted whistling sounds while he rose up in the air. In a flash, he was in the middle of all the other people from Dragon Mountain. At the same time, the 7 geniuses at the top of the mountains also started rising up in the air and moving towards their respective groups in the south, north, east, and west. The geniuses from all the other countries and empires also meticulously joined their groups. The crowd raised their heads and looked at the geniuses. They were 144. They were the most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu. They were all very young and were going to play important roles in the future of the Xueyu. Finally, the cruel competition was going to start. Some geniuses would die, but for others it would be a great opportunity. After the competition, some of them would be able to reach beyond the clouds. Xue Wuchang glanced at them, nodded and said, 144, very good. Please give your best during the competition. It can determine your future. Good luck, said the old man. They had to give their best. The competition would determine their future. Those words were resonating in people's heads. It wasn't an ordinary competition. Alright, first, let me tell you the rules. Under your feet there is a precipice, and down there is the demonic area. If you go there, no matter how high your real cultivation level is, your cultivation level will fall down to the first Shenqi layer. Your spirit, soul, physical strength and skills will also be restrained. You won't be able to use them. You will only be able to use basic magical powers, said Xue Wuchang slowly. The crowd was stunned. Their cultivation level would only be the first Shenqi layer down there? And they wouldn't be able to use their skills or other things? That was really too cruel. Indeed. It's exactly the way you think it is. Inside, you will all be of the same level. No matter how high your cultivation level is, the competition is fair so everyone will have a chance. What we value most during the competition are those with high natural abilities. Everybody will be of the same level. Those who were weak were excited to hear that. They obviously had faith in their natural abilities, but the cultivation level was important. This way they wouldn't get killed by the strongest cultivators directly at the beginning. Alright, let me give you all some seeds. These seeds will teach you skills which you will be able to use in the precipice. Besides that, hay will have many more benefits. Everybody give your best. Those seeds have extremely beneficial effects on your health. You will be pleasantly surprised, said Xue Wuchang, and then stretched his hand in which appeared magnificent and bright seeds. He threw one of them to everybody. The crowd remained there motionless and the seeds all landed between their eyebrows. In a flash, all the geniuses had a shiny seed between their eyebrows. Alright, jump into the precipice now. It's been waiting for you for 10 years. The opportunity is rare, cherish it. Dangers and benefits coexist. Remember that, give your best and you will seize all those great opportunities, explained Xue Wuchang indifferently. Everybody was excited. The great competition of Xueyu was about to start. Would it be dangerous or would it be a great opportunity? It depended on each person. Demonic area, here I am, said Duan Wudao while jumping into that precipice and disappearing inside. Di Ling, Xue Sha, Lin Xiao and all the others all jumped into the precipice. All these geniuses' silhouettes were flickering and jumping into the precipice. Very quickly, Xue Wuchang was the only one left in the air. 144 geniuses had ended up inside. They were going to show what they were capable of. Chapter 609. The Temple. After everybody jumped into the evil area, Xiaoya found herself alone on a huge mountain. Now that everybody had left, she felt quite lonely there. Jun Emoshi and the others had already left. She was now looking down at the evil area. In the crowd, there were 2 people talking. They looked extremely strange and were wearing ancient bronze masks. "Pajun, can you see Lin Feng?" asked one of them who looked extremely strong and robust. A moment before, amongst the 144 silhouettes, they hadn't seen Lin Feng. They couldn't have been mistaken, they were sure about that. However, Lin Feng's rise in Shuiyu had been majestic. Pejun and Han Man knew that he had left for Dragon Mountain. They had always paid attention to the news concerning Lin Feng. However, at this moment they couldn't see Lin Feng. No idea, said Pejun while frowning. He felt quite bad. If Lin Feng wasn't at the great competition of Shuiyu, it meant that he had been in an accident or something else had happened to him. With his temperament, he would have never missed the competition, said Pejun while looking at Han Man. They both looked extremely anxious. What you mean is that? Said Han Man. He didn't dare think about it. Are you looking for Lin Feng? Said a little and gentle voice at that moment. Han Man and Pejun turned their heads and looked at the little girl. Indeed, do you know him? He's like our brother, said Han Man to Xiaoya hastily. Maybe, what does your Lin Feng look like? Asked Xiaoya. Younger than 20 years old, handsome, amazing natural abilities. He uses swords and fire. He likes to put on white clothes, said Han Man hastily. When Xiaoya heard him, she smiled. Lin Feng's face had changed so they couldn't recognize him anymore. My big brother is inside already. It's just that you cannot recognize him right now, said Xiaoya while giggling. Big brother? Han Man and Pejun were stupefied looking at her in a strange way. Yes, nodded Xiaoya. My name is Xiaoya. Lin Feng, the one you're looking for, became my big brother. Why didn't we see him then? Hush, whispered Xiaoya in a low voice. He offended too many people, so he has to hide. I see. Han Man and Pejun glanced at each other and took a deep breath. They were suddenly relieved. Nothing had happened to Lin Feng. Xiaoya was a little girl. She couldn't lie to them about such serious things. Besides, everybody was speechless watching the cultivators down in the precipice. Everybody's heart were palpitating. They saw the mysterious chi down in the precipice dissipate and everything became clear. It was a vast area with rivers, mountains, and ancient temples. The 144 geniuses in the precipice also appeared in various places. Suddenly, those who were immobile began turning around. The observers could clearly understand why the geniuses were acting that way. However, there was a wave of light down there and nobody knew what it was. Look, it's my big brother there, said Xiaoya while showing Lin Feng to Pejun and Han Man. There was a silhouette by a river down there. It was Lin Feng looking around. Lin Feng was stupefied. From the moment he had entered into the precipice, he had sensed that his entire strength and pure chi were absolutely oppressed, even the strength of the Harukas. At that moment, Lin Feng only had the strength of the first Shen Qi layer. Down in the precipice, there was no exception. Everybody had their strength and pure chi oppressed. Lin Feng raised his head and saw that apart from mountains and rivers, there were stars. He looked at them and realized that there were 143 of them. They were 144 when they entered and Lin Feng could now only see 143 stars. It clearly meant that the star which was missing was himself. At that moment, Lin Feng was speechless. A star disappeared. A star had disappeared without reason and Lin Feng had clearly seen it. Again, thought Lin Feng. At that moment, there were only 141 starlights left. Nobody killed them. Those starlights didn't collide with anything else. Lin Feng thought that they couldn't have gotten killed. They had only just arrived in the precipice. They couldn't have gotten killed in less than 1 second, it would have been too quick. Splash, splash, splash. The splashing sounds of water were resonating in the atmosphere. Lin Feng frowned and looked at the river next to him. Boom! Water was splashing in a terrifying way. There were gigantic waves on the water that were moving towards him. Lin Feng was caught off guard. He immediately jumped backwards. Even though his strength was restricted, he still had acute perceptions. Boom boom. A trunk was immediately destroyed by something. Lin Feng stopped and stared at the silhouette coming towards him. It was a ferocious wild beast. It looked like a fake flood dragon with fish scales all over its body. It looked really hideous. In the evil area, apart from cultivators, there are ferocious wild beasts as well, thought Lin Feng while looking at it. He immediately turned around and left. Lin Feng could see that a star was getting near him too, but he didn't feel like fighting against other people so soon. His silhouette flickered and he appeared in another place. He looked around at the illusion and the stars. At that moment, not far from Lin Feng, a star suddenly disappeared without any reason. Did a beast do that? Lin Feng frowned and walked towards the place where the star had just disappeared. He wanted to find out why people were disappearing suddenly. Lin Feng arrived next to that place and was absolutely astonished. There was an ancient temple in front of him. It seemed half real, yet half fake. Its doors were firmly closed. On the temple, written in huge letters, Temple. Temple? Lin Feng was a bit surprised to see that such a place could be called a temple. A moment before, those people had disappeared because they had just entered a temple. Lin Feng assumed that there was something inside. It seemed like a sword. It was extremely strange. What is that place? Thought Lin Feng. He decided to wait outside and wait for someone to come out. After a short time, the door of the temple opened itself and someone came out. Lin Feng was surprised. That person was Yu Jian. At the moment when they entered the evil area, they had lost their comrades. Therefore, Yu Jian wasn't with Yu Qin anymore. They couldn't find each other. Yu Jian was also speechless when he saw Lin Feng, but he immediately narrowed his eyes and smiled coldly. What a coincidence! Yu Jian slowly walked towards Lin Feng. In his hand he had a sword and he was smiling in an ice-cold way. Lin Feng frowned but didn't retreat. He was just looking at him and standing. In the evil area, everybody had the strength of the first Xianqi layer, without any exception. You piece of trash. You should have died earlier. Now I'll take care of you. Yu Jian made a step forwards and released his deadly energies. That sword looked particularly sharp. Lin Feng's heart started pounding. It's a sword skill. Lin Feng was astonished. He finally had an idea of what was in that temple. There were skills and techniques. Chapter 610. How to use the seed. What a fast sword, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng trampled his feet on the ground and moved backwards. Slash. The cold light of the sword moved in the air and a starlight appeared in front of Lin Feng. His sword then moved obliquely in the air towards Lin Feng and had reached him. His top was lacerated. The move had been too subtle and quick. Then Lin Feng saw blood appear on his chest where his clothes had been torn apart. As expected, the strength of my corporeal body is also constricted. His corporeal body also only has the strength of the first Xianqi layer. Guessed Lin Feng. That evil area was really terrifying. Its only rule was to constrict everybody. The only strength which existed in there was the one provided by the evil area. You still want to try me? Said Yu Jian while smiling. His sword appeared again, twinkled and started shaking uninterruptedly. Yu Jian seemed like he was very far from Lin Feng but had in a flash appeared near him. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at him. He wanted to understand the angle at which the sword was coming to him. Yu Jian moved his sword and in a flash, it was about to reach him. Yu Jian and Lin Feng had the same level at that moment. They were both of the first Xianqi layer. The problem was that Yu Jian had a skill and Lin Feng didn't. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling and kept staring at the sword. He condensed a tiny amount of pure qi into his hand. He then slapped that sword aside and then stretched his right hand, condensed pure qi again and grabbed the sword. He held it firmly. Blood started flowing in Lin Feng's hand and Yu Jian's sword kept shaking violently. Lin Feng's facial muscles kept twisting and he was shouting violently. Get lost. He moved his right hand back. In a flash, the sword moved as well as Yu Jian's body. He looked like he was going to fall. Lin Feng didn't knit his eyebrows at all. Instead, he took advantage of the fact that Yu Jian looked like he was going to fall down and immediately attacked him. Get lost. Lin Feng then immediately punched him violently and blood splashed out of Yu Jian's mouth. His punch had even managed to project him backwards. However, Yu Jian's fighting abilities weren't affected. Lin Feng didn't wait for him to strike back though. He immediately moved in the direction of the temple. By the time Yu Jian understood what was going on, the door of the temple was closing itself and Lin Feng was already inside. Yu Jian looked glum while fixedly staring at the temple. Surprisingly, Lin Feng had managed to escape from him. Yu Jian obviously knew that if he just had a wonderful opportunity to kill Lin Feng. Outside of the evil area, the people of the Yu clan were looking at that move in an ice-cold way. He hadn't managed to kill Lin Feng. Xiaoya, Han Man and Pajun, however, felt extremely relieved. Under such circumstances where their strength was constricted, courage, insight and willpower were the most important factor. And it seemed that when it came to those qualities, Lin Feng was much stronger than Yu Jian. In the temple, Lin Feng's pure qi was flowing and his hand was slowly healing. He was carefully observing his surroundings. In front of Lin Feng, in the air there was a sword in suspension. There were several swords and there were stars twinkling on those swords. They looked like the seeds Xue Wuchang had sealed between their eyebrows. They were exactly the same. Those small swords hide something. Probably some sword skills, thought Lin Feng. Yu Jian had gone in without anything and had come back out with a sword skill. It was probably the first sword that he had obtained. There were 6 other small swords. The first sword Lin Feng could see had 1 starlight twinkling on it while the last one had 7 starlights twinkling on it. That confirmed Lin Feng's theory. Come down. Xue Wuchang had said that those seeds would give everyone a great opportunity. Relying on those seeds they would be able to choose skills which would provide them with unconceivable advantages. They just had to remain brave and courageous and the effects of the seeds would be incredible. They would be astonished. Xue Wuchang's words were resonating in Lin Feng's head, which surprised him. Those seeds could provide them with unimaginable advantages. Could it be that the seeds and the swords have to be of the same level in order to get them? Thought Lin Feng. He had many different thoughts. Indeed, it had to be that way. Xue Wuchang had given everybody 1 seed before entering the evil area. There were 144 seeds. Possibly, those cultivators had to kill other geniuses to obtain seeds and obtain better skills and magical powers. So you have to kill other people to get the best things? What an evil rule, thought Lin Feng, whose pupils shrank. He had to kill people to steal seeds to obtain better skills. Everybody would try to hunt him to obtain his seed. Seeds could actually drive these geniuses insane. They would be ready to do anything to get seeds. What a cruel game, thought Lin Feng, whose eyes were twinkling. No wonder that Yu Jian's deadly energies were so thick. He wanted to kill people to obtain seeds and then obtain better skills. Lin Feng needed to learn a skill very quickly and then steal seeds from other people as quickly as possible as well. Even though I can obtain treasures by using seeds, it's only the first seed right now. And it is an unavoidable step, otherwise I will never be able to go and kill other people. On the contrary, they will chase me down with their new skills, thought Lin Feng without hesitation. In a flash, the seed he had between his eyebrows twinkled as well as the starlight of the first sword. Between Lin Feng's seed and the sword then appeared a bridge. In his brain also appeared a sword. It appeared slowly. It seemed to be coming from far away and abruptly it appeared in front of him and then penetrated into his brain. Lin Feng's forehead was there covered with cold sweat. What a powerful sword, thought Lin Feng, surprised. It was similar to the sword that Yu Jian had just used. As expected, he had taken the first sword. However, Yu Jian hadn't understood the fundamental essence of that sword. He couldn't control it that well. With 1 seed I could get only that sword, whispered Lin Feng, but that sword was already very good. A green sword slowly descended in front of Lin Feng. He stretched his head and put it in his back. Then he sat down cross-legged and visualized that sword. He had already used the seed to get the sword. He could go out if he wanted, just like Yu Jian had done. But instead he preferred staying inside and learning first. If Yu Jian managed to properly understand the sword, he would be able to kill Lin Feng very easily. The best thing Lin Feng could do was to stay in the temple and understand the sword. Sharpening the sword wouldn't interfere with the cutting of firewood. He needed to practice the skill before using it. Meanwhile, others outside could become much stronger while he took his time. That sword kept revolving in Lin Feng's brain. His understanding of that sword skill was becoming deeper and deeper, as if it had been carved into Lin Feng's brain. After a long time, Lin Feng opened his eyes and between his eyebrows, the sword was brighter than before. Lin Feng abruptly stood up and stretched 1 finger, which was as sharp as a sword. It seemed extremely slow, but it actually crashed onto a wall of the temple in a flash and a hole appeared. One day, surprisingly, It took me 1 day to learn that skill. No wonder that Yu Jian hadn't managed to understand it all that well," whispered Lin Feng. Suddenly, a light beam spread in the temple. Lin Feng turned around and discovered that the door of the temple was open. He was stupefied. As expected, the door had just opened itself. One could practice cultivation in the temple for only 1 day, otherwise people could have hidden in it indefinitely. 1 day was the limit. Chapter 611. A disaster for the Yu clan. It seems like I have to go out, thought Lin Feng when he saw that the door was open. He couldn't see what was happening outside, but he was hoping that the temple wasn't being encircled by his enemies. Lin Feng grabbed hold of the sword he had obtained and left the temple. He checked to the left and right. He was being extremely careful. There was nobody outside, which relieved Lin Feng. He continued to glance around. But after a while, Lin Feng saw some starlight, 2 of them and then 3. As expected, Lin Feng was surprised. After 1 day, nobody wasted any time. People continued to hunt others to steal starlight seeds. There, at that moment, Lin Feng was stupefied. There were 5 starlights. Someone had 5 starlight seeds, which meant that he had killed 4 people already. Besides, Lin Feng just realized that there was something strange. Everybody was trying to avoid him. All the starlights were moving away from him. People who had that many starlight seeds were very strong. Lin Feng was surprised. At that moment, there was a star approaching him. There were 2 people, one of them had 1 starlight seed and the other had 2. Do they want to kill me? Thought Lin Feng. He then started to calmly walk away. As expected, when Lin Feng changed direction, the other 2 moved in the same direction as him. They were rushing in his direction and gaining speed. Lin Feng's pace didn't change. He was moving neither slowly nor quickly at that moment, but those 2 people continued to move closer. Finally, he arrived somewhere and stopped. He then turned around and saw the people arriving. Yu Jian and Yu Qin. Yu Jian already had 2 starlight seeds. He had killed someone and stolen another starlight seed. After 1 day in there, you finally came out, said Yu Jian with a cold smile on his face. He had been waiting for Lin Feng to leave. After seeing only 1 starlight leaving the temple, Yu Jian understood that it must be Lin Feng. On the way, Yu Qin managed to join him. You want to kill me that badly? Said Lin Feng indifferently while looking at Yu Jian. You should have died much sooner. You're really lucky to have made it so far. But I have an extra seed now. With its advantage, you are already a dead man, said Yu Jian while smiling coldly. A sword then appeared in his hand. Man, you've only been hiding in the temple for 1 day? That wasn't very smart, said Yu Jian mockingly and then added. I learnt the same skill as you with my seed and then an agility technique with the other one. Yu Qin learnt a hand skill with his seed. You're nothing. How could you hope to compete with us? Lin Feng reached back and unsheathed the sword from his back, which emitted a cold gleam. We learnt the same sword skill and I now have an agility technique. Get ready to die, shouted Yu Jian furiously. He then jumped forwards, attacking Lin Feng abruptly. His sword was dazzling. Lin Feng took a step, his sword twinkled, the same sword as Yu Jian. They both looked exactly the same. I'm going to get another seed, said Yu Jian happily. He then moved with incredible speed and in a flash his sword arrived in front of Lin Feng. But at that moment Lin Feng's sword, which was in the distance, moved like an illusion, slow and quick at the same time. Peace! The sound spread through the air and a sword penetrated through flesh. Lin Feng and Yu Jian were facing each other. Yu Jian's sword was in front of Lin Feng's chest and even pierced his clothes, but it was unable to move farther. However, Lin Feng's sword had already pierced Yu Jian's throat. That sword seemed to be slow, but in a flash, it had pierced into his throat. He had learnt an agility technique which had helped him improve his speed, but his sword skill wasn't at the same level as Lin Feng, who had truly understood the skill. Same sword skill indeed, but our way of practicing is different, said Lin Feng indifferently. He then pushed Yu Jian's sword aside using his finger. Yu Jian's eyes were wide open. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He refused to close his eyes. Lin Feng's sword had been incredible, to the extent that Yu Jian was still seeing an illusion. Lin Feng was a moron? But why was he able to comprehend the skill much better than Yu Jian? And in the outside world, wasn't it the same? Because you're about to die, let me tell you something. I am Lin Feng from Shuiyu, said Lin Feng coldly, which astonished Yu Jian. He started shaking even more. Lin Feng, it was the real Lin Feng. Then Lin Feng's sword moved more and he started shaking intensely. The two seeds between Yu Jian's eyebrows immediately appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. It was incredibly intriguing. Lin Feng had killed him and gained 2 starlight seeds. Yu Jian had already used his 2 seeds to learn skills, but after dying, they were usable again. Lin Feng could use them again to learn another skill. When Yu Qin saw Yu Jian collapse, he was shocked as he stared at Lin Feng. It was the real Lin Feng. He had just thought that it was a nobody with a strong body, but in fact it was Lin Feng, the real one. It was the Lin Feng he had always wanted to eliminate. Lin Feng had disappeared, but he hadn't died. He instead transformed and appeared with a new face. He hadn't even bothered to change his name, yet nobody had guessed that he was the same person. You asked people from Tianfeng to come and kill me. You nearly caused my death. Initially, I didn't intend to kill you, but you've always continued to push me. How foolish, said Lin Feng while slowly walking towards Yu Qin. Yu Qin kept moving backwards. He was terrified. Lin Feng originally was a nobody in Shuiyu and then rose and became a famous figure. Everybody had been astonished by Lin Feng's cultivation speed. He used to be trash, but step by step, he had become so strong that it scared everyone, making them seem like trash for being so afraid. So just like Yu Qin, many people wanted to eradicate him. However, Lin Feng was still alive and he was in front of Yu Qin. Thought Yu Qin at that moment. He was terrified by Lin Feng and, of course, didn't dare fight against him. He turned around and started running like mad. Surprisingly, he didn't even consider trying to avenge Yu Jian's death. You know, running is useless now, said Lin Feng. He made a step forwards, raised his sword, which seemed to be extremely distant, but in a flash, it abruptly appeared in front of Yu Qin. It was releasing a suffocating pressure. Yu Qin wasn't even able to move for much longer until he crashed into the ground and the starlight seed between his eyebrows appeared on Lin Feng. Lin Feng already had 4 starlight seeds and could learn 3 new skills. He didn't go back to the temple though. He needed to get more seeds to learn the better skills. He wanted to learn the sword skill, which required 7 seeds. Outside of the evil area, Yu Lu Shui was furious and his face had become extremely red. The 2 geniuses of the Yu clan had died. They were both killed by the same person. Yu Lu Shui had hoped that those 2 geniuses would make it at least to the second round, but in the end they died. He would be going back to Shuiyu with nothing. When Yu Qingshan, on Yu Lu Shui's side, saw that Yu Qin and Yu Jian had died, he remained calm. There were many benefits to gain in the evil area, but not everybody could seize those opportunities. Yu Jian and Lin Feng had had the same sword skill and the same cultivation level, but there had still been a huge difference in power. The great competition of Shuiyu belonged to real warriors, to the real geniuses. Even though there was an initial 144 geniuses, lots of them would die. Suddenly, Yu Lu Shui turned his head and looked at Xiaoya on another mountain. Sharp lights were twinkling in his eyes. Lin Feng had come together with that girl. Lin Feng had killed his sons, so the Yu clan would make him pay the price for it. Chapter 612. Encountering UMO. Yu Lu Shui's silhouette flickered and he threw himself towards Xiaoya while releasing his qi. That powerful qi terrified Han Man and Xiaoya, who turned around and immediately saw Yu Lu Shui attacking them. How shameless! Shouted Han Man furiously. He grabbed Xiaoya's hand and moved backwards, but Yu Lu Shui acted as if he hadn't heard him and kept moving forwards. His fist was still aiming at them. Stop! Shouted a furious voice which crashed through the air and oppressed the entire mountain chain and especially Yu Lu Shui. Yu Lu Shui felt like a meteor had crashed into his body and he groaned in pain. He immediately fell to the ground and struggled to remain conscious. He pulled a long face and raised his head. He saw Shui Wuchang in the air, who was fixedly staring at him with killing intent. Yu Lu Shui was terrified. The great competition of Shuiyu is a competition in which those geniuses fight and risk their lives. You are an insignificant outsider. If we allowed insignificant people to shamelessly attack people out here, how could the geniuses concentrate their efforts on the competition? If you want to avenge your people, you can do it after the competition. But if you even glance at them again during the competition, I will kill you on the spot. A terrifying energy had invaded the mountains. Everybody could clearly sense it, which made them shiver. Nobody dared to make a single move. What a buffoon, you really made a spectacle of yourself, said Yu Qingshan while looking at Yu Lu Shui. Yu Lu Shui groaned and coughed even more blood. His face looked hideous. The geniuses of his clan had been killed and he couldn't even avenge them. Han Man bro, are you alright? Said Pajun at that moment. Even though Yu Lu Shui hadn't managed to attack him properly, his chi had still reached Han Man and injured him. I'm okay, said Han Man while wiping some blood from his mouth. He was fixedly staring at Yu Lu Shui under his bronze mask and then looked at the evil area again. After Lin Feng killed Yu Jian and Yu Qin, he had 4 starlight seeds. He looked around and found out that there were more people coming towards him. Everyone had seen that there were 3 people in the area, but shortly after there was only 1 person left with 4 starlights. He had obviously killed the other 2 people. The killer hadn't taken the time to go to a temple and learn an amazing skill, so the best time to attack him was now. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled and he immediately started to move towards the temple. However, 4 people started rushing to block his path. 2 of them had 1 starlight seed and the others had 2 each. He couldn't deal with them all by himself. When they saw Lin Feng continue moving towards them, they threw themselves towards him. If they could obtain his seeds, they would reap a huge benefit. They had to stop Lin Feng from entering the temple, otherwise he would enter the temple and become a much stronger opponent. He would be very difficult to defeat after that. Lin Feng obviously knew what these people were thinking. However, defeating the people who had only 1 skill learnt was the best strategy. Very quickly, Lin Feng could see people closing in, but he didn't stop. He rushed forward at full speed. The maximum speed of the first Xianqi layer was, of course, not the same as when he was in the outside world. Stop! Someone bombarded the atmosphere with their fist. It was filled with deadly energy. Lin Feng saw many fists start to form in the air and move towards him. They were forming a perfect line in the air. What a monstrous punch, thought Lin Feng. His silhouette flickered and he unsheathed his sword. At that moment, Lin Feng had already forgotten the punches. He was focusing on his sword, which emitted a whistling sound. The sword collided with the punch and a fierce, deadly energy was released into the atmosphere. That person had much better comprehension of his skills than Yu Jian. Die! Lin Feng shouted furiously and his sword pierced the atmosphere. It cut through the fists in the air and continued moving, ignoring the resistance of the atmosphere, moving forwards with indomitable will. Piasative. Another sound spread in the atmosphere. This time it wasn't deadly energy which had been pierced but the person who unleashed it. Boom! The fist, however, hadn't stopped for even a second as it crashed onto Lin Feng's body, causing him to fly backwards. His sword pierced the enemy's throat and created a scene filled with blood as another starlight seed appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. At that moment, Lin Feng had 5 starlight seeds. Around him, many people were paying close attention to his movements. What a terrifying sword! 1 attack and he was killed. People outside were also stupefied. They were all sent into the evil area with the same level and no skills. It was to see who had greater comprehension abilities. This was actually an extremely fair way to compete. Those who had higher cultivation levels were inherently stronger than those with lower cultivation levels. If they retained their cultivation level in the evil area, the strong would have killed the weak in the blink of an eye. However, those who had an extremely powerful comprehension would have a greater advantage in a fair fight, and Lin Feng was one of those people. Therefore, under such circumstances, he could easily handle people who relied solely on their cultivation. Lin Feng stood up and looked around. The other 3 people were closing in. Besides, some more people were starting to change direction towards them. They all wanted to steal his seeds. Go! thought Lin Feng as he rushed in another direction. He couldn't afford to be surrounded, otherwise he would really die. In that evil area, one could see other people's position with a glance, so he couldn't afford to be careless. A temple. At that moment, Lin Feng had created some distance between them and was the north area close to a temple. Lin Feng's eyes were distant as he contemplated his options. If he went in, he would be able to use his 4 seeds to obtain a powerful skill, but after that he would have no seeds left and would have to kill even more people to obtain better skills. Lin Feng was irresolute at that moment. More people would arrive as time progressed. What he initially wanted was to kill enough people to obtain the better skills right away. Now he had to decide on a different plan. But while Lin Feng was considering the situation, he narrowed his eyes and suddenly 5 starlights appeared. There was already someone at the temple? What a coincidence, that person was coming out. That person immediately jumped out and appeared at the top of the temple. When he saw Lin Feng, he looked excited. Lin Feng had 5 starlight seeds. If he stole them, he would be able to use another 5 seeds. It seemed like this time the heavens were on his side. Lin Feng stopped walking and looked at that silhouette. It was one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses, UMO from the Firmament Empire. During that short time, the people from behind were starting to catch up. When they saw UMO leaving the temple and his 5 starlights shining brightly, they all stopped and didn't dare approach. Everybody revered and worshipped the 8 most outstanding disciples of the competition. Besides, at that moment, UMO had 5 starlight seeds after exiting the temple, which meant that he had probably obtained a monstrous ability. I must leave. Lin Feng didn't want to fight against UMO either. He was using only 1 seed and UMO was using 5 seeds. Besides, UMO was one of the 8 geniuses of the competition. He probably mastered skills at an incredible speed. Lin Feng wasn't strong enough to fight against him with only a single skill. Lin Feng then moved in the other direction, but UMO just smiled coldly. "Where are you going?" said UMO at that moment while turning into a hurricane and moving at full speed. UMO had killed 1 person and rushed to a temple. He acquired a monstrous agility technique. Then he used that agility technique to kill 2 other people. One of them had a single seed and the other had 2 seeds. Then UMO had used those 3 seeds to obtain a monstrously strong skill, a fist skill. "Come back!" shouted UMO furiously. Chapter 613. Ambition. Lin Feng's clothes had been shredded. UMO gathered pure qi into his fist and struck towards Lin Feng's body. Where Lin Feng was, a terrifying whirlpool appeared which seemed like it was going to swallow him. Boom! Lin Feng slammed his foot to the ground. He wanted to retreat, but he only saw UMO give an evil laugh. He then threw himself at Lin Feng with lightning-quick speed. "Sword!" shouted Lin Feng. A light twinkled. Lin Feng abruptly turned around and raised his sword to the west. That terrifying sword was neither too slow nor too fast. It just continued to move forwards. Die! Lin Feng looked murderous. It seemed like Lin Feng wasn't near UMO. However, Lin Feng's sword seemed like it could defy the physical laws as it immediately appeared in front of UMO. It was aimed at his throat. Lin Feng's sword was extremely fast. UMO quickly dodged and raised his hand to block as terrifying pure qi started undulating around him. A subtle sound emerged as Lin Feng's sword penetrated into his hand, which made UMO's proud face suddenly drop. Lin Feng's sword was incredible. It had ignored the laws of physics. If UMO hadn't reacted quickly, that sword wouldn't have penetrated his hand but his throat instead. Die! 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 UMO shouted died once, but it echoed through the sky. He was furious and his long hair started violently fluttering in the air. He was releasing a terrifying energy. He unleashed a punch and a vortex appeared next to Lin Feng again. It wanted to swallow him. Lin Feng groaned and was once again projected backwards. While Lin Feng moved backwards, blood splashed from UMO's hand again as he heavily stepped on the ground and suddenly disappeared from sight. Agility technique? Thought Lin Feng stupefied. UMO had learnt an incredible agility technique which enabled him to move extremely quickly. Lin Feng raised his sword and instead of moving backwards, he rushed forwards. However, he only saw UMO appear briefly in front of him and vanish once again. Lin Feng's sword was only fast enough to pass through an after image, while Yuemo threw himself at Lin Feng's back while shouting furiously. A terrifying fist was aiming at the back of Lin Feng's head. If Lin Feng didn't move quickly, his skull would be crushed. Boom! Gotcha! Yumo's hand didn't reach Lin Feng's head like expected. Instead, it was greeted by a punch from Lin Feng's other arm. However, the power of the punch traveled through the fist and snapped Lin Feng's arm in half. Gotcha! Pure chi continued up his arm, doing more damage to the bones as it passed. Lin Feng gnashed his teeth and glared Yuemo with killing intent. You injured me. Yuemo was glaring at Lin Feng and continued moving forwards to put more pressure on Lin Feng's fist. Die! Shouted Yuemo. Yuemo shook his fist, and in a flash, Lin Feng was surrounded by a vortex again. Lin Feng's facial expression was ruthless, and he was still firmly holding his sword with his other hand. In his head, there was only his sword, nothing else. Boo! Boo! Another series of sounds emerged in the air. Yuemo continued moving forwards and putting pressure on Lin Feng. He looked like he had gone crazy. Lin Feng was firmly holding his sword, but at that moment, he was shocked. As if someone couldn't wait for him to die quick enough, he suddenly felt a powerful chi surge from behind him. Lin Feng quickly jumped and moved aside. He then felt a wind breeze past his body, and immediately a rumbling sound filled his ears as wind was blasted in every direction. Tang Yu. When Lin Feng saw that Tang Yu was attacking Yuemo, he was astonished. She was now fighting against Yuemo. Yuemo was also stupefied. Tang Yu had 4 starlight seeds already. She wasn't going to be easy to defeat either. Yuemo suddenly pulled a long face. He looked particularly glum. In the evil area, their cultivation levels were all the same. What a pity. The most important thing was to obtain as many starlight seeds as possible to get the treasures. That was the only thing which could make the difference inside the evil area. Let's go, said Tang Yu to Lin Feng. She then slowly moved backwards. Lin Feng coldly looked at Yuemo and left with Tang Yu. Yuemo looked at them leave. Fighting against them at the same time wouldn't be that easy. He had no choice. Fuck off. Stop looking at me, said Yuemo as he rushed towards someone who had moved too close to the fight. Everybody started shaking. It didn't look good for that person. Tang Yu and Lin Feng had left, and that person was now closest to Yuemo. That person then immediately started running, but Yuemo moved like a hurricane and in a flash arrived next to him. Then Yuemo's hand suddenly clamped onto the person's neck. A subtle sound emerged in the air, and in the blink of an eye, new starlight seed appeared between Yuemo's eyebrows. Most of the others who had been watching had already left. They had been careful, prudent, and smart. They had understood that they couldn't waste time watching. They had to use their time to hunt others to become stronger. Those who weren't seizing the early advantages in the beginning were dying one after the other. Those who were still alive were becoming stronger and stronger. Killing the strongest ones had become almost invincible, so the weakest had no chance of winning. They had to adopt a defensive strategy and quickly retreat from all danger. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were on a dune at that moment. They could see all around them. The wind was blowing on Tang Yu's hair, making it float on the wind. Her white skin looked particularly cold at that moment. Thank you, said Lin Feng. Tang Yu had saved his life. He wouldn't have been able to escape otherwise. Junemo, she said that people from Dragon Mountain have to stick together. I hope that more of us will be able to move on to the next round. Besides, you are talented. It would be a pity if you died in the first round. Get ready to use the seeds you have right now, said Tang Yu while turning her head to him. She looked elegant and beautiful. Lin Feng had given her a very good first impression. He was extremely brave and courageous, as well as a strong and talented cultivator from Shuiyu. She appreciated him and didn't want him to die in the first round. At that moment, he had 4 seeds which he hadn't used. If he had, he would have been able to fight back against Yuemo. Besides, Lin Feng had also injured Yuemo with his sword while being at a disadvantage. Don't worry. I am going to wait, said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He really wanted better treasures. He wanted to wait. We were 144 cultivators when we came in. Now 40 people are dead already. In a short while, the first round will be over. Maybe if you get to a temple, you will become much stronger, but many people have died already. The first round will be over soon, it is just a matter of time. It also means that we won't have a chance to kill many more people. After all, you're not the only one with multiple starlight seeds, therefore, we need to get stronger as soon as possible to gather more seeds. That is what Shui Wuchang meant when he talked about the benefits. Lin Feng was very ambitious, but the problem was that the 8 most outstanding geniuses were very dangerous. Of course, people would all adopt different strategies. Some of them thought that using seeds immediately was the best way, then they could immediately kill to gather more seeds. That was one strategy. It's very possible that others want your seeds and are paying attention to you, said Tang Yuyu after remaining silent for a short while. Lin Feng already had 5 seeds and wasn't going to the temple, many people would target him. Therefore, I cannot afford to waste time, said Lin Feng. He was fixedly staring at Tang Yuyu and added, "Will you help me?" "Help you?" whispered Tang Yuyu. She was a bit surprised. "Yes, help me. I know that I may sound selfish, but I don't want to miss out these opportunities. I know you don't either. Considering the transparent nature of this place and your strength, people will try to avoid you at all costs, and there's not much you can do alone. Therefore, if we work together, we can kill people and acquire seeds which wouldn't be possible for either of us by ourselves. We should use this opportunity to seize an advantage," said Lin Feng firmly. This was a rare opportunity. Lin Feng, just like Tang Yuyu, didn't want to let it slip. Lin Feng needed strength, so he didn't hesitate when asking Tang Yuyu for help. Chapter 614. Killing Together. Tang Yuyu remained silently staring at Lin Feng. He was asking her to help him. He was asking her to give up a part of her freedom. She would certainly miss out on some seeds if they worked together. "Why would I help you when I could instead take your seeds from you?" asked Tang Yuyu, surprised. Her cultivation level was higher than Lin Feng's. If she could obtain some great skills, wouldn't she be stronger than him? "We are 2 different people, one of us must compromise. If it's not you, then it's me, but in any case one of us must compromise, otherwise we won't progress. At this time I need strength more than you do. It is only because of this that you think that I am selfish, which might be true to some extent. But if you help me, I can give you 2 pure healing pills. I think that you would be happy to have them," said Lin Feng, looking determined. His cultivation level was indeed very low. If he missed the opportunities of the evil area, he would be too weak to combat the other geniuses. In the evil area, some already had 6 or 7 starlight seeds. They were probably the 8 most outstanding geniuses. Besides, the number of people who had only 3 or 4 seeds was reducing quickly. Lin Feng was convinced that those people were going to be killed by the others. Lin Feng had to become stronger, otherwise everybody would rush to kill him. Pure healing pills. Tang Yuyu was surprised. Lin Feng also had such treasures. Pure healing pills enabled cultivators to entirely refill their pure qi reserves. That kind of pill was extremely useful, especially during the competition. If there was a cultivation difference between 2 cultivators, a pure healing pill could make the difference. After remaining silent for a short while, Tang Yuyu said, "All right, what do you want me to do exactly?" When Lin Feng heard Tang Yuyu, he smiled resplendently. Tang Yuyu was accepting his request. Lin Feng took out 2 pills and gave them to Tang Yuyu. She looked pleasantly surprised. "Are you not afraid that I'll betray you now that you gave me these? You just saved my life. Those 2 pills are nothing compared to what you have done for me. Just see it as a sign of my gratitude. Even if you take them and leave me, I will not blame you," said Lin Feng with a warm smile on his face. Tang Yuyu's beautiful eyes were twinkling as she immediately put the pills away. Lin Feng was funny and interesting. "There are 2 people at the top of some dunes. One of them has 3 seeds and the other only has 1. We should kill the one with 3 seeds first," said Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu nodded and they started walking through some dunes. In the evil area, even though everyone only had the strength of the first Shen Qi layer, they could still control pure qi, use it to fly through the sky. However, not many people dared to because they didn't want to waste pure qi. It was too dangerous. Lin Feng started running quickly at full speed. Somebody could sense that Lin Feng was coming towards him, and he raised his head. He obviously didn't want to fight because he had started running away. Lin Feng suddenly jumped closed in the space between that person. They all had the strength of the first Xianqi layer, so chasing other cultivators wasn't easy at all. Therefore, it was easier to escape. And in case it was impossible, you could always hide in temples and waste some time. Lin Feng looked extremely resolute. He jumped forwards. His pure qi emitted whistling sounds as he rose up in the air like an arrow. He was flying in the air above a dune which seemed to increase his speed. Chasing people while flying was much easier. He then noticed a gray silhouette not far from him. Someone from Tiangfeng. When Lin Feng saw that person, he smiled devilishly. That person was the one of the 7 envoys. That person rose his head and saw Lin Feng. He was surprised. Not only had he found Lin Feng, but Lin Feng had 5 starlight seeds already. Didn't you want to kill me in the first place? Why are you escaping now? Said Lin Feng before landing on the ground. He was looking at him in a cruel way. He despised him. That person shook his fist and it turned golden. It was particularly dazzling and his qi was quite strong. Then he threw himself at Lin Feng, leading with his fist. That fist contained some Buddha qi. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to be compatible with that person's evil qi. It was very strange. A cold light twinkled. Lin Feng unsheathed his sword and immediately attacked that person's fist. His golden Buddha fist seemed extremely solid and indestructible. Clang! A metallic sound spread in the air. Lin Feng jumped backwards and smiled. You are so weak. That person had just exchanged his 3 seeds for a skill, a golden Shakyamuni fist skill. Even though he hadn't practiced it for a long time, he was already able to make his fist turn into a real golden Shakyamuni fist, which meant that almost nothing could destroy him. Therefore, he had stopped chasing people. His sole purpose was to protect himself. That's why he was hiding in the middle of some dunes. He had first killed 2 people, then he had acquired this skill and thought it was enough. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng was paying attention to him, and even less that he would waste his pure qi to chase him and run in the air. You really are a coward. I used only 1 seed and you tried to run away from me. People from Tianfeng are all weaklings and cowards. You chicken. You have no guts at all. Just like the envoys I killed in Shuiyu, you are also a mere piece of trash. Said Lin Feng indifferently. That person was astonished. Lin Feng had killed some of the envoys in the past? Lin Feng. Indeed I am. On that night, you sent so many people to kill me, but I killed all of them and I am still alive. Said Lin Feng mockingly. The other looked furious. Surprisingly, this Lin Feng was the real one. They had all been fooled by his appearance. You didn't die then, but now I will kill you, said the envoy while jumping forwards. His 2 hands turned golden. They were dazzling while looking extremely solid. Lin Feng's sword looked like a poisonous dragon incessantly attacking that person's fist, but it was useless. His sword couldn't cut through those fists. No wonder you were just hiding here. That skill is only enough to protect yourself, said Lin Feng. The envoy had just joined his hands and could protect himself. When he was blocking Lin Feng's sword, he had managed to grab it and hold onto it firmly. Lin Feng smiled coldly and tried to move his sword back. Before that man realized, Lin Feng had managed to pull his sword back and put it in front of the envoy's throat. Golden Shakyamuni body, shouted that person whose facial expression drastically changed. His entire body was dazzling. He transformed into a golden statue. That skill looked particularly inappropriate and inharmonious on such a person. Ooh! However, at that moment, the envoy was caught off guard. He turned his head and saw a beautiful silhouette run towards him. Immediately after, her fists broke through the golden statue. Siar! His entire body was breaking. Lin Feng's sword then pierced through his throat. He was shaking violently. He looked astonished as he collapsed. Die! Lin Feng shook his sword in that person's throat and in a flash, 3 starlight seeds appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. Now Lin Feng had 8 starlight seeds and could use 7 of them. Thank you, said Lin Feng while smiling at Tang Yuyu, but she didn't look so reassured. She pointed at a place down the hill and said, Don't talk too fast. Lin Feng turned his head and immediately looked down the dune. There were many stars twinkling down there. Those people had been staring at them. At that moment, Lin Feng's 8 stars obviously attracted everybody. "Let's go," said Lin Feng when he saw that many people were running towards them. Tang Yuyu started running with him at full speed. Chapter 6:15. The Evil Temple. There were many people running up the dune together, but strangely they weren't fighting each other. There were 2 people at the top of the dune. One of them had 12 starlight seeds. Stealing that person's seeds would have been incredibly great. There was another person with 8 starlight seeds, and it seemed that they hadn't used 7 of them yet, which meant he hadn't obtained any great skills yet. Many people in the area noticed that and rushed over to the dune. It seemed like the first round could finish any time on that dune. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu were running frantically. Finally they arrived at the very top of the dune. It was a huge and vast flat area. Surprisingly, at the top there was a temple out of which a mysterious and mystical chi was emerging. Lin Feng looked at the temple. It seemed like there was a Haruka there. It looked kind and evil at the same time. It was difficult to distinguish if it was evil or good. Maybe that the envoy obtained his golden Shakyamuni skill from that temple. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu glanced at each other and then gazed into the distance. More and more people were running up the dune. They were getting closer and closer to the top. "Do you want to go to that temple?" asked Tang Yuyu to Lin Feng. Lin Feng already had 8 seeds and had used only one of them. He could probably obtain some monstrous skill at that moment and become much stronger. Lin Feng looked irresolute. It had been so difficult to obtain those 7 seeds. What he wanted the most was the sword skill from the sword temple, but people were chasing them at that moment. If he wanted to obtain the sword skill, he definitely had to fly through the sky and use too much pure chi. Others would then join in chasing him then. It would be horrible if Lin Feng ended up dying. If he entered the temple in front of him, he might obtain a great skill, but he might not have the opportunity to go to the sword temple again. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at that temple with the statue looking both evil and good at the same time. It seemed like the nature of the statue kept changing every second. Lin Feng, however, had a familiar impression. Wasn't his Haruka strength skill also good and evil? Maybe that it was a sign that he had to get in. "Can you come in with me?" asked Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu looked pensive for a few seconds and replied, "The doors might not shut because I don't have any more seeds to bargain with. But we might as well try." Lin Feng nodded. They needed the door of the temple to remain closed, otherwise they wouldn't be protected. "Let's go in," said Lin Feng. They then immediately entered the temple without another hesitation. Tang Yuyu entered with him, and as hoped, the door of the temple closed itself. In a flash, some stars disappeared at the top of the mountain, surprising the people that were running up the dunes. Was there a temple at the top of the dune? A lot of them began leaving. Lin Feng had 8 seeds and would probably obtain a monstrously powerful skill. After coming out, they wouldn't be the ones to kill him. Instead, he would kill them. Of course, some people stayed and waited. They consisted of a group of 5 people. Those people only had 1 seed between their eyebrows. They had managed to survive only because they had stayed together the whole time. That was a smart strategy. They kept helping each other. If they had decided to kill each other initially, they might not have survived the confrontation after. They decided to wait for those 2. One of them had 8 starlight seeds and another had 4. If their group had managed to kill them and obtain their seeds, they wouldn't be scared of anyone else anymore. Even though the seeds would only belong to one of them, they still wanted to try. Maybe they would be the one to succeed. At that moment, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu were in the temple. It was as big as the sword temple. There were no swords in suspension, however, only the statue. That gigantic statue wasn't facing them. They could see it from the side only because it had 2 faces facing leftwards and rightwards. One evil and one good side, looking in 2 different directions. "It's a Haruka statue," whispered Tang Yuyu. She sounded very surprised. How come there was such an ancient statue in there? Evil was evil, good was good. How had they managed to merge together in antiquity? Lin Feng was astonished. It was a real Haruka statue. Did that temple have anything to do with the Haruka skill he had? Lin Feng looked at the hands of the statue. On its left hand there were 3 good benevolent statues sitting. On its right hand there were 3 malevolent statues. On these statues there were also stars, from 1 star to 6 stars. The benevolent statue only has 1 to 3 stars while the malevolent ones have 4 to 6 stars. Is good less powerful than evil? Tang Yu looked surprised. That statue was extremely mysterious. Since the benevolent-looking statues had less stars than the malevolent-looking ones, did it mean that the malevolent skills were more powerful than the others? It seems like the one who built the temple didn't respect good as much as evil, whispered Tang Yu. But Lin Feng didn't hear her. He was staring at the one statue in the middle. It was half good, half evil and had 7 stars on it. That was probably the most powerful one. 7 seeds. Are you going to use them all? Asked Tang Yu. She sounded excited and curious. Was Lin Feng going to spend all of his seeds to learn the most powerful skill, or was he going to spend a few on his several skills? Was he going to get a kind one, an evil one, or the harmonious one? Of course, I will get this one, said Lin Feng while pointing at the one in the very middle. Lin Feng had the strength of the Haruka. Of course he would get the most powerful one. He had to get the authentic one, half evil and half good. Perhaps this statue would help him in the future with his strength of the Haruka. Tang Yu looked at Lin Feng in a deep and meaningful way and immediately walked towards the statue. She then said, I know you wanted to go to another temple, but now you can relax. I won't bother you while you learn the skill. All right, said Lin Feng, nodding. He shook his head and his 7 starlight seeds connected with those of the half-evil, half-good statue. Bridges appeared between his seeds and those of the statue. Swiftly, Lin Feng had the impression that his head was going to explode. Some memories had entered his brain which made him shake and move back a step. Lin Feng tried to stand steadily but gave up and sat down cross-legged. As expected, a skill which required 7 stars was much more powerful than a skill which needed only 1. Those memories were extremely brutal. At that moment, a vast starry sky appeared in Lin Feng's brain. It was gigantic. A dazzling golden light started twinkling all around his body. The aura of the Buddhas were shining all around him and illuminating the entire atmosphere of the temple. On one side in the space there was a magnificent light, and on the other side there was a black evil light which couldn't be pierced by the beautiful and dazzling light. Those statues seemed like they had come from ancient times, as if good and evil had been fighting since the beginning of time. It seemed like the mouth of the good statue was moving. Texts written in Sanskrit started flowing. They were written in beautiful golden letters and they were moving towards the dark light. However, the evil statue remained fearless and remained standing there indifferently. An evil energy kept flowing and rolling in the atmosphere. The beautiful golden texts in Sanskrit kept colliding with that evil energy and then disappearing as if they had never existed. Even though Lin Feng's eyes were closed, his facial expression kept changing. The images in his brain were incredible, astonishing. His heart kept pounding violently and he couldn't calm down. Chapter 616. The beginning of an era all around, evil and good were competing. The endless golden light of good was illuminating the evil darkness which was corroding the aura of the Buddha. They had been there for millions of years and the space around them was being destroyed through the struggle. Evil and good kept colliding, and yet, neither disappeared. Instead, a balance between good and evil started to appear. The black evil lights kept flowing in the air, the golden light couldn't destroy it. In Lin Feng's brain, the balance between good and evil had started to stabilize. Haruka's strength rotation skill. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. That was probably the skill he had thought about. He had already seen and learnt the skill, but this time, good and evil kept changing and evolving. In the end, good and evil merged together. Maybe that his skill came from the memories of an extremely strong cultivator from an ancient time. All skills had a strong cultivator at their origin, they were the ones creating them. Extremely strong cultivators could learn skills but also create skills for other people. They then could become Zun cultivators. Lin Feng was visualizing the skill which kept changing. He was sure that the Haruka's strength skill came from an extremely strong cultivator. However, while good and evil were fighting, Lin Feng's heart was pounding. He was realizing how monstrously strong some cultivators could be in the continent of the 9 clouds. Those extremely strong cultivators, who had reached the clouds, had created skills combining good and evil and then transmitted them from generation to generation using this Buddha statue. If such a strong cultivator had still existed, they could annihilate anything. There was good, evil, and what else? Was there really such a thing as good and evil? Were those concepts related to a mysterious level of enlightenment? Lin Feng was asking himself many questions. People in his previous life were atheists, but he was realizing that people in the continent of the 9 clouds knew all under heaven. Good and evil were at the origin of life. Maybe that after reaching a specific cultivation level, cultivators could be exceptionally enlightened. At that moment, Lin Feng was surrounded by a light. The strength of the Harukas was rotating around him. The good golden light and the evil black light were rotating together all around him. His muscles, bones, and visceral organs were transforming and absorbing that strength. What on earth is that skill? Tang Yuyu was astonished watching Lin Feng. Those ancient evil and good qi were terrifying and rotating at full speed around Lin Feng. What secrets was the Haruka statue hiding? If Lin Feng doesn't die, he will become monstrously strong. He will be a monster like Duan Wu Dao or Di Ling in the future, thought Tang Yuyu. She hadn't known Lin Feng for a long time, but each time she met him she was surprised. Last time, he had burnt monstrous quantities of liquor, then he had attracted sunlight and now he was practicing a Haruka skill. She was witnessing the rise of a real genius. The strength of the Haruka kept rotating around him. Lin Feng was visualizing the evolution and changes of the liquids. It seemed like he was witnessing the beginning of a new transnational era. Lin Feng had absolutely no perception of time anymore. In the evil area, some buzzing sounds were spreading everywhere and piercing through people's eardrums. The entire area was vibrating. At the same time, outside of the evil area, many people were watching the competition. It seemed like some marks and fissures were appearing throughout the evil area. People's faces had quickly changed. They were astonished. What was going on down there? Several people raised their heads and looked at Shui Wuchang. By this time in the evil area, 50 or 60 people had already died. For a region like Shuiyu, that was a huge number already. Those 50 or 60 people were all incredible geniuses, but they had died. They were chosen to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu and had become stepping stones for the first round. They had died and their seeds had been taken by their murderers, making them even stronger. Those who had only 3 seeds were being chased, their lives and seeds would be taken. Shui Wuchang looked calm and serene. He was just staring at the evil area. He was looking forward to seeing the evil area turn upside down just as much as he was also looking forward to seeing the second round. As the evil area was getting destroyed, he was wondering which genius was the one who was causing it. He was particularly surprised considering that all the cultivators only had the strength of the first Xianqi layer inside. In order to destroy it like that, the cultivator necessarily had 7 seeds and had been able to learn that specific skill. Boom, boom, boom. Most of the participants stopped moving as the evil area kept trembling. What was happening? The group of people on the dune were particularly shocked. They could sense the vibrations even more than the others. Kacha. It seemed like something was about to explode. They raised their heads and saw a layer surrounding the atmosphere. There was a pallid light that seemed like it was going to burst out. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosion sounds started emerging in the air. Suddenly, an incredibly powerful qi started rolling in the atmosphere. The crowd looked around and realized that they couldn't see stars anymore. They were wondering where they were. My cultivation is back. My cultivation is back to normal too, said some people in the evil area, realizing that their qi was back to normal. They suddenly felt so happy and so comfortable. Yeah, right, the strongest cultivators now have their cultivation back to normal too. Who can stop them now? Said some of the weakest cultivators. They were suddenly feeling hopeless and terrified. In the evil area, everybody's cultivation level was oppressed, so it was better for them. They didn't have to make too many efforts to survive, but now the strongest cultivators would be able to slaughter them. Just like they had guessed, the restrictions of the evil area had disappeared. Some people rose up in the air and flew slowly into the sky. They had immediately started looking for people to chase and kill. They wanted more seeds. Unfortunately, they couldn't see starlights anymore. Otherwise, it would have been very easy to slaughter the remaining cultivators. Many of them were terrified when they saw the silhouettes rise up in the air. Some of them even started running away in order to find a place where to hide. Even some of the strong cultivators began to hide. They couldn't let other people know how many seeds they had, otherwise they would be killed. "You can kill those people, I'm no longer interested," said someone waiting on that dune who was really weak. Then his silhouette flickered and he started leaving. "Where are you going?" shouted an ice-cold voice. An oppressive chi surrounded that person and a fist bombarded his head. He died in a flash and his murderer took his seeds. "Let's go," said someone else. The others were escaping as well, but the enemies looked at them and surprisingly didn't chase them. Immediately after, they glanced at each other and smiled coldly. They understood what it meant. Chasing them would have been worthless. They would have only obtained a few seeds. The people who were in the temple had 12 seeds, they were worth the wait. Boom! A rumbling sound spread in the air, the door of the temple slowly opened itself and a young man appeared. He looked sick but clean. He was slowly walking out of the temple. Chapter 6:17 Indestructible Golden Body. They came out. The crowd was excited and looking at the person exiting the temple. Tang Yu also came out. At that moment she looked calm and serene. She wasn't releasing any chi, she was only looking at Lin Feng's back. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the 3 people in front of him. They were all of the 7th Shen Qi layer. 5th Shen Qi layer. When the 3 people saw that Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Shen Qi layer, they looked even greedier. Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Shen Qi layer, nothing more. They felt very lucky. Surprisingly, Lin Feng already had 8 starlight seeds. They looked forward to stealing them. At that moment, the 3 of them were confused. They noticed Tang Yu. She wasn't doing anything even though her cultivation level was much higher than Lin Feng's. She had broken through to the very top of the 7th Shen Qi layer. Why wasn't Tang Yu protecting him? Why was he the one protecting her? 4 seeds. Lin Feng calmly glanced at them and counted the enemy's stars out loud, which surprised them. Lin Feng was counting the seeds the opponents had. Could it be that Lin Feng wanted to steal their seeds? Lin Feng made a step and slowly started walking towards them. However, Tang Yu remained at her initial position and didn't move at all. Everybody smiled coldly when they saw that. Lin Feng was really conceited to think he could rely on a skill he had exchanged against 7 seeds and defeat them. Besides, the enemies outnumbered them, he really wanted to die. "Those 8 seeds are mine," said one of them whose silhouette flickered, and in just a moment appeared in front of Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling. He then raised his fist and bombarded the space in Lin Feng's direction. The 2 others were looking at him and smiling coldly. They glanced at each other and in a flash, they appeared on both his left and right. At the same time, they threw themselves at Lin Feng. Of course, the first one to kill Lin Feng would be happy to get his seeds. Boom! The first one was still attacking Lin Feng as his fists crashed onto Lin Feng's body. But he was astonished. He cleared his head and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked calm and solemn, like a golden Shakyamuni. The enemy didn't have the feeling that he had hit a human being but instead an extremely solid statue. That's the skill from the temple? That person was surprised as it was inconceivable. That person's cultivation was higher than Lin Feng's by 2 cultivation layers. However, when he punched Lin Feng with all his strength, it seemed like it had done nothing to Lin Feng at all. It was as if his strength of the 7th Shen Qi layer had been negligible. That opponent seemed like an ant trying to shake a tree. Lin Feng's body was clearly as strong as that of a Buddha's warrior attendant. It had the strength of the Vajra. Die. That person looked hideous. He condensed a massive amount of pure qi in his fist and punched Lin Feng again. In that fist he had concentrated all his pure qi. It was twinkling all around him and Lin Feng, illuminating the atmosphere. However, that pure qi just slid off Lin Feng's body and dispersed itself before vanishing. Lin Feng remained standing his ground. What the hell? How's that possible? Seeds, said Lin Feng calmly and indifferently. He then slowly raised his hand, which was surrounded by a golden light. The enemy's face was alarmed. He raised his hand to block Lin Feng's hand, but he just heard a cracking sound. The bones in his arm were completely crushed. He hadn't been able to withstand a single attack and instead emitted a horrible shriek. Following the onslaught, Lin Feng slapped his head, which exploded easily. It took only a breath for that person to die. How scary, thought Tang Yuyu, who was still standing behind Lin Feng. She continued staring at him. What kind of skill had Lin Feng learned to be that strong? He was surrounded by a golden aura and looked just like a Buddha. The other two that remained were terrified. Their hearts were pounding. They had the feeling they were suffocating from their own palpitations. How terrifying! How come Lin Feng had become so strong in the temple? Opportunities. Those were the kind of opportunities which cultivators could seize during the competition. All the extremely strong cultivators had made a mistake. After getting a few seeds, they had immediately exchanged them for skills and treasures. Then they continued to kill a few cultivators and again exchange for lower-level skills. Why hadn't anyone done like Lin Feng? First gather 7 seeds and then get into a temple to obtain their ultimate treasures. It's your turn, said Lin Feng, turning to the other 2 cultivators. He made a step towards one of them and that person's heart started pounding brutally. He didn't look greedy anymore, only terrified. Let's go. Those 2 people didn't want to steal Lin Feng's seeds anymore. They just wanted to escape alive. Where? Said Lin Feng indifferently. A hand emerged out of his mouth. It was a gigantic golden hand. That hand was emitting whistling sounds in the air as it enveloped one of their bodies. Get lost, said that person while releasing some pure qi. He then raised his 2 hands towards Lin Feng's hands. BZD. It seemed like an ancient bell had been hit. The moment that person's hands collided with the gigantic golden hand, he sensed a strength invading his entire arms. His bones were crushed in the blink of an eye. He couldn't stop that gigantic hand as it continued moving forwards. Boom! That person had no time left to try anything. His body started shaking uncontrollably as blood splashed everywhere. Some more buzzing sounds spread in the air as his body was projected away. What the hell is with that physical strength? Thought that person astonished. He was trying to fly away in the air. Lin Feng looked like a Buddha statue still. The strength of the Buddha, indestructible golden body, said a calm voice which resonated in his ears. Then another hand came attacking and grabbed his entire body. He was being shaken violently and was terrified. Bzz. Some words in Sanskrit then spread in the air. That gigantic golden hand threw him away again. He crashed into the ground and sat there seemingly calm. He wasn't breathing anymore. On Lin Feng's head, more precisely between his 2 eyebrows, 2 more seeds appeared. Indestructible golden body, whispered the other one. Lin Feng looked calm and serene from beginning to end. It seemed like he wasn't worried at all. He had just managed to kill 2 cultivators of the 7th Xianqi layer. Only one was left. Let me off, I beg you, begged the remaining cultivator. If you do, I will be your slave. You wanted to steal my seeds, should I let you off? Asked Lin Feng, looking as calm as before, but also a bit cold. That person started moaning with grief. He understood that Lin Feng wouldn't let him off. He was hopeless. I want to know, what skill did you get in the temple? Is it a D-level skill of high quality or a Tian-level skill? How come you've become so strong? I didn't get any skill inside. I just obtained some memories from the antiquity, explained Lin Feng, but his opponent couldn't understand what he meant. Lin Feng jumped forwards and his Buddha hands riddled that person who died in the blink of an eye. 3 cultivators of the 7th Xianqi layer had died. Chapter 6:18. Killing down the hill. What Lin Feng had obtained in the temple actually was a set of memories, good and evil ones from an ancient time. If Lin Feng hadn't learned how to use the strength of the Haruka in the past, even with his power of understanding, he would have needed much longer to understand these memories. However, he had been able to learn from them swiftly and had even destroyed the restrictions of the evil area. People had retrieved their original cultivation levels. After observing the memories, he had made the strength of the Haruka rotate in his body and could now have it rotate 6,000 times. This meant that his corporeal body had the strength of the 6th Xianqi layer. It also meant that Lin Feng could just stand there without doing anything to protect himself. If an ordinary cultivator of the 6th Xianqi layer hit him, then nothing would happen to Lin Feng. He wouldn't even budge more than a single millimeter. The strength of the Haruka coupled with the memories he had acquired in the temple, Lin Feng's entire body had transformed into a Buddha. With his indestructible golden body, he could easily defeat opponents of the 7th Xianqi layer. Studying those memories had given Lin Feng enormous advantage. Lin Feng already had 12 seeds between his eyebrows and could already use 4 of them to learn a new skill. "Let's go," said Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng jumped up into the air and started flying at full speed without trying to hide. He had already realized that the exterior had changed, everyone's cultivation levels had gone back to normal. Because no one could be found by their stars anymore, hunting other participants was very difficult. Lin Feng needed more seeds to go back to the first temple where he had been craving the ultimate sword skill. The sword temple had some incredible sword skills. Lin Feng had guessed that all the temples contained different skills. Tang Yuyu was closely following him at full speed. Several people noticed Lin Feng's many seeds, they wanted to steal them from him. When the crowd saw those seeds between Lin Feng's eyebrows and that he had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, they were in disbelief. If they managed to kill him, they would obtain 12 seeds. How wonderful would that be? 12 seeds would enable them to obtain the very best skill in one temple and a very decent skill in a second temple. Lin Feng was already going to the second temple. "Where are you going?" said a cold voice as Lin Feng was passing. A sword light twinkled and then suddenly moved towards Lin Feng. "Get lost." Lin Feng opened his mouth and a terrifying energy emerged out of it. Some golden words in Sanskrit started flowing out of his mouth. Boom! When the Sanskrit words collided with the sword was surrounded by a golden light. Then Lin Feng jumped forwards and raised his fist. Another seed soon after appeared between his eyebrows. Lin Feng still needed 2 more seeds. He wanted to spend 7 seeds in the sword temple to get the best skill. "I need 2 more. Lin Feng jumped and rose up into the air again. His body was surrounded by a golden aura which drew many people's attention. 13 seeds. The crowd was astonished. What a huge number. Some of them decided that they definitely had to kill Lin Feng. At the same time, Lin Feng glanced at the crowd too. He was looking down at them. He had to get more seeds from them. How audacious. Who's that? How arrogant, thought the crowd while looking at Lin Feng. He was just running in the sky and not even trying to hide. Everybody could see him and he was looking back at them. How arrogant. Only the 8 most outstanding geniuses could do such things. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd and finally saw someone. That person was from Tianfeng. He could get his revenge. 2 seeds, perfect, that's exactly what I need. Lin Feng jumped towards that person without hesitation. He was acting without wasting time. That person from Tianfeng watched as Lin Feng landed in front of him and narrowed his eyes. Lin Feng's cultivation level wasn't that high, so how come he had managed to obtain so many seeds? Between his eyebrows, there were so many dazzling starlight seeds. "You won't go to the nirvana, instead you will go to hell and then," said that person slowly and mockingly. Lin Feng's seeds had to end up between his eyebrows. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng. That person wasn't even done talking when Lin Feng interrupted him. In a flash, a gigantic golden hand appeared and flew in his direction. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive. What a terrifying magical power, thought that person whose face turned deathly pale. How could Lin Feng be so strong? It was just a moment, but he was already attacking at full speed. He raised his hand and condensed some pure qi. However, the golden hand that appeared in front of it was overwhelming. Comparing the 2 strengths seemed particularly ridiculous. Boom, boom, boom. The hand crashed onto the enemy's body and his bones broke into pieces. He immediately issued a horrible shriek and blood started gushing all around. Die, said Lin Feng again. In a flash, he hit him again and that person had died. He now had 15 starlight seeds, which meant he finally had 7 seeds to get the skill he wanted. Lin Feng, we can't stay here too long. We must hurry, said Tang Yuyu, whose face was changing drastically. Lin Feng had been too aggressive, wild and careless a moment before. He had flown through the air and everybody had seen him. Now, people were trying to encircle him all around, they were trying to find where he went. He had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, he was so weak in comparison with them. I see that you've been well since we parted, said a cold voice at that moment. A silhouette ran towards them from the horizon. Umo laughed mockingly when he saw Lin Feng. Boom! That person was precisely Umo. His fist was aiming at Lin Feng and he was flying at full speed. How aggressive! Lin Feng's pupils looked colder and colder. Umo had retrieved his cultivation level, so he feared nobody. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu were definitely going to die if they tried to fight against him, especially Lin Feng. Lin Feng had put his sword against his throat before, what a bastard. Now, he had to die in this evil area. Chapter 619. Haruka Body Transformation. When Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu saw Umo, they stopped and calmly stood analyzing the situation. At the same time Umo's arrival, others were rushing over still. But when they saw Umo, they all stopped and stayed far away from him. They didn't dare get too close. Maybe Umo would go crazy and kill them too. They would lose their seeds. Mysteriously, they didn't know how strong he was. They did know he was one of the most outstanding young cultivators of the 4 empires of Shuiyu, and he had a strange 8 trigrams eyes spirit. You all want to take advantage of the weak I see, said Lin Feng while glancing around. They didn't dare get close, they were all glaring at him like a tiger watching his prey. Lin Feng had 15 seeds. Acquiring 15 stars, having only to kill one person would be an amazing opportunity. With 15 seeds, they would be able to go a temple and obtain some incredible treasures. How could they control their greed? Get lost all of you, said Lin Feng calmly. Those people were first alarmed and then smiled coldly. Lin Feng was quite audacious and arrogant. He surprisingly dared them to get lost. If Umo hadn't been there, they would have taught Lin Feng a good lesson already. Nobody moved. They despised Lin Feng. Umo didn't hurry to attack either. So many people were around, so he was trying to think about a way to obtain as many seeds as possible in this situation. There were Lin Feng's seeds but also those of all the others around. If he managed to obtain all those seeds, he would be able to learn the best skills of 3 or 4 temples. How tempting! Nobody would ever be able to stop him after that. Greed, he was greedy because he wanted to become stronger. And he was becoming greedier and greedier each second. He wouldn't only take Lin Feng's seeds but those of everyone else as well. When he saw that the crowd wasn't moving any, Lin Feng's eyes twinkled with cold lights. He then whispered something, some mysterious mantra in Sanskrit, and some golden texts written in Sanskrit were coming out of his mouth and floating in the air. More and more prayers continued to appear like that in the air. A golden light was revolving around Lin Feng's body. It seemed like many shadow hands were appearing. 1,000 Buddha hands, die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. The infinity of small Sanskrit letters in the air turned into golden hands and moved in all directions. They were so fast that people didn't have time to react. Boom, boom, boom. 1,000 Buddha hands killed some people instantly. The weakest cultivators couldn't stop the attack and their blood had splashed everywhere. The strongest ones managed to stop the attack but had the feeling that the bones in their arms were broken. That 1,000 Buddha hands attack was monstrously powerful and contained terrifying physical strength. Not to mention it was as fast as lightning. Yu, help me, shouted Lin Feng. Tang Yu reacted immediately. 1,000 dream shadows, shouted Tang Yu, and 1,000 clones appeared in the air. Boom, boom. All her clones kept attacking and so many people collapsed, they were dead. Back. Quickly. Many people were trying to escape at that moment, but those who had just been attacked by Lin Feng couldn't move back. And Tang Yuyu's clones were extremely fast. They moved around like hurricanes and surrounded the remainders. When Tang Yuyu moved back to her initial position, 5 or 6 people had already collapsed and she had 10 seeds between her eyebrows. Lin Feng had shouted her name and asked for help, but Tang Yuyu perfectly understood that Lin Feng had just been nice. He had given her those people. He had just injured them with his golden Buddha hands and purposely left them alive. Lin Feng glanced at Tang Yuyu and then at the remaining enemies coldly, which made their hearts start palpitating. They had underestimated Lin Feng. Those 1,000 Buddha hands contained a physical strength of the 7th Xian Qi layer. How terrifying! With that speed and that strength, they didn't have the time to react. That's what he obtained in the temple. The crowd was astonished. They were greedy and had neglected the fact that Lin Feng could have obtained an incredible skill in the temple. Yumo's eyes were twinkling. The stronger Lin Feng was, the more excited Yumo was. So that was the real power of the skills he could find in the temples. 15 plus 10, that's 25, said Yumo while counting Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu's skills. Then a magnificent smile appeared on his face. He had the impression that he already possessed those 25 seeds. "They're all mine," exclaimed Yumo, while releasing some terrifying whistling, pure qi. His hair and clothes were chaotically fluttering in the wind. He jumped forwards and disappeared from his initial position. But Lin Feng's eyes were filled with sharp lights. Yumo appeared in front of him in a flash. Wind. Lin Feng then moved like the wind and disappeared from his original position. At the same time, golden lights were twinkling all around his body. "Do you think you can escape?" mocked Yumo coldly. His pupils slowly turned white and gray and had the form of the 8 divinatory trigrams. Lin Feng had the impression that the atmosphere was distorted. He was caught off guard. He had the impression that he was walking in a swamp. He had fallen to a hallucination. "Come back," shouted Yumo while raising his hands. Waves of pure qi rolled in the atmosphere and surrounded Lin Feng, slowing him down drastically. That was a skill that Yumo had obtained from a temple, which coupled with his 2 trigram eyes. They complemented each other very well. Die. In a flash, Yumo appeared in front of Lin Feng and his 2 hands tore through the space between them. His hands hadn't reached Lin Feng yet, but he could already sense that Yumo's pure qi could break his bones and tear his flesh apart. "Indestructible golden body," shouted Lin Feng furiously. Some words written in Sanskrit emerged out of his mouth, and he raised his hand. Then a gigantic Buddha hand moved towards Yumo. Boom! Both attacks collided and the golden Buddha hand was destroyed. It then turned into countless small golden stars. Yumo's hands were not hindered. They were still moving towards Lin Feng. "Die." However, at the same time, an ice-cold voice pierced through Yumo's ears. A hand filled with deadly energies was moving towards his back. It was Tang Yuyu. "Get lost," shouted Yumo furiously. A distortion immediately appeared in the space behind him and 8 trigrams appeared. Tang Yuyu was blocked. Boom! Yumo's hands and Lin Feng's body collided as some crackling sounds spread in the air again. His golden body was breaking apart. Destroy! Lin Feng's body was projected backwards. A terrifying and painful, scorching hot energy had spread in through Yumo's hands at the moment he had hit Lin Feng. Yumo frowned and condensed some pure qi, but the fire was particularly hot. He wasn't able to make it go away immediately. Boom! A terrifying qi emerged out of Yumo's body and surrounded the flames. Then he turned around and his fist rocketed towards Tang Yuyu's body, which projected her flying backwards. Lin Feng was standing in the air and blood was flowing out of his mouth. He was fixedly staring at Yumo. Yumo had already broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer. He was monstrously strong, as expected from one of the 8 most outstanding young disciples of Xueyu. Even though Lin Feng's strength of the Haruka could rotate 6,000 times, and even though he had an indestructible golden body, he still couldn't rival with Yumo Haruka's strength. "Haruka body transformation," said Lin Feng, looking calm and solemn. The strength of the Haruka started rotating in his body at full speed. It kept changing and evolving. Lin Feng's body was sometimes golden, sometimes pitch black. Sometimes he looked benevolent, other times malevolent. He seemed to be both good and evil. Haruka body transformation. Will Lin Feng survive, or will Umo obtain the seeds of power and conquer the world? Find out next time on P.M.G. Chapter 620, Get Back into the Temple. Good and evil had been fighting and fluctuating unceasingly in those memories from the Haruka statue at the temple. There were many things in the memories to understand for those with a great power of comprehension. There were monstrous advantages for those who rediscovered them. It wasn't a specific skill or technique, because skills and techniques had a maximum limit in terms of power. But those memories, the stronger a cultivator was, the stronger that magical power was. Lin Feng had extremely high natural abilities and had an incredible power of understanding. His spirit aided him in understanding things even more. The strength of the Haruka kept flowing through his entire body. Sometimes he looked like a Shakyamuni, while other times like a demon. At that moment, Lin Feng was half good and half evil. Very good, said Umo, looking excited. He then disappeared from his original position again, looking particularly bestial. His 8 trigrams eyes were spinning. Lin Feng then entered into a distorted part of the atmosphere again. Break! Shouted a voice, and then some rumbling sounds spread in the air. Lin Feng's body turned into a Haruka that seemed it was as solid as a mountain. The distorted atmosphere couldn't affect him anymore. He chanted some mantras quietly in Sanskrit. Immediately after, 1,000 Buddha hands appeared and moved towards Umo, gigantic and simple, 8 trigrams blood formation, shouted Umo coldly. The chi of his spirit started invading the atmosphere, and in his back appeared a gigantic ashen white 8 trigram spirit. It looked just like his eyes. Die! Shouted Umo. He then stretched out and his eye spirits floated into the air. In just a breath it had enveloped Lin Feng's body. Even though he had a Haruka body, he couldn't move. The 8 trigrams kept spinning around Lin Feng's body. The golden and black lights around his body were weakening. How scary! Lin Feng was speechless. That 8 trigrams blood formation was terrifying. Even though there was no blood yet, Lin Feng could understand why it was called that. Lin Feng had a Haruka body and still couldn't move. If he had an ordinary body, he would have already died. His bones and flesh would have been wrecked in the 8 trigrams. Lin Feng moved his hands and several Haruka fists attacked the 8 trigrams blood formation. The formation shook, but it wasn't enough to break it. It continued to imprison him. Tang Yu's facial expression went rigid when she saw Lin Feng in danger. She jumped and started pummeling towards Umo with her fists filled with deadly energy, but Umo was stronger than her by 1 cultivation layer. He wasn't scared of her at all. His ashy white 8 trigrams eyes kept revolving, and then Tang Yu was imprisoned. Tang Yu suddenly looked solemn, as if she had no other choice. Some spirit chi appeared around her, and from her back appeared a myriad of illusions. 1,000 shadows, she said with a melodious voice. In a flash, a myriad of clones appeared. They weren't fake though, these were all her real body. The sky was covered by her. Those clones were all filled with incredible physical strength. Her original body was in the middle of the developing chaos. Destroy, said Tang Yu, and immediately 1,000 fists moved towards Umo at full speed. It seemed like she wanted to bury him under all those hands. If those hands bombarded his body, no matter how strong he was, Umo would die. Umo's expression changed dramatically. Tang Yu was also extremely strong. All those hands were real and filled with deadly energy. There were no illusions. 8 trigrams, shouted Umo furiously. In a flash, 8 trigrams appeared on his body. His spirit seemed like it was going to explode. His body transformed into a vortex filled with 8 trigrams. Suddenly, Tang Yu's original body disappeared in the vortex. The other clones weren't influenced by Tang Yu when she disappeared. They were still encircling Umo. It was at this time that Lin Feng shouted, "Let's go." It's important to remember that those clones were all real, none were fake. Without hesitation, Lin Feng took this opportunity to bombard the 8 trigrams vortex with physical strength. And this time he managed to break the formation. Lin Feng moved like the wind off into the distance at the speed of sound. He had managed to maintain the body of the Haruka through that endeavor. "Annihilate!" shouted Umo furiously when he heard that Lin Feng wanted to escape. He was furious. His 8 trigrams vortex started spinning again and kept swallowing Tang Yuyu's clones, but those clones didn't give up and kept encircling him. They didn't let him have a moment to chase down Lin Feng. "Tang Yuyu, it's all right. Protect yourself now," shouted Lin Feng, who disappeared into the distance. Then, one of Tang Yuyu's bodies started moving at full speed away from Umo. She already possessed 10 seeds, so she could get some amazing rewards from a temple. A hurricane was emitting whistling sounds from behind. Lin Feng felt frustrated. His cultivation level was too low. When would he be as strong as the cultivator to whom the memories of the Haruka belonged? When would he be able to turn into an authentic annihilating machine, or into an authentic Haruka? If that ever happened, he would crush people like Umo as if he were an insect. With the body of the Shakyamuni or of the Haruka, he would actually become indestructible. Nobody in the world would stop him. 15 seeds. On the path, someone saw Lin Feng's seeds and rose up in the air. Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. He would be extremely easy to defeat. Lin Feng was furious when he saw that someone was attacking him again. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng while raising both his hands. One was golden like the hands of the Shakyamuni and the other was black like that of the Haruka. Good and evil were bombarding the atmosphere together. Some rumbling sounds spread in the air. That person was not prepared for Lin Feng's attack. Boom! Immediately after, a buzzing sound spread in the air, as if it had been a death bell. The enemy was punched by those fists and a new seed appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. Those who were watching from the distance were astonished when they saw Lin Feng. They decided not to get any closer to him and challenge him again. They were all stunned by fear. Lin Feng had attacked with his 2 fists and had exterminated a cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer. Almost unfazed, he was still moving at full speed and emitting whistling sounds. It was a short time after when he finally found the Sword Temple. "There's nobody inside. Great," thought Lin Feng as he rushed over to the temple. The worst scenario would have been like the first time when he wanted to get in but the door had been closed. Lin Feng would have come for nothing. If he were to remain outside waiting for the temple, others might challenge him and manage to defeat him. 60 or 70 people had already died so far during the first round. The first round would end any time now. He had to hurry if he wanted to reap his rewards. Silhouettes were approaching not far from the temple. They were glancing left and right for someone. "Stop!" shouted a voice furiously, which made them shiver. Immediately after, Lin Feng entered the temple and disappeared from their field of vision. Buzzing sounds spread in the air as the doors closed themselves. The small group was astonished. They had been tricked to stop. One shout had been enough to make them stop. And now they had to find another temple. They gnashed their teeth and left, leaving Lin Feng to the temple. Chapter 621. The end of the first round. Lin Feng didn't stop when he entered the temple. He immediately went to the 7th sword and bridges appeared between 7 of his seeds and the 7 seeds of the sword. With a flash, the mysteries of that sword started leaking into his head. BZD. That sword was emitting buzzing sounds, and incredible chi was moving in a swift and fierce way all around. Lin Feng's clothes and hair were fluttering violently like a flag in a strong wind. Boom boom. Lin Feng felt assaulted. He had the feeling that his brain was shaking violently. In his head appeared a vast and wild place that was seemingly endless. But then a sword descended from the highest of heavens. That sword contained a monstrous sword chi which was extremely oppressive. Lin Feng fixated on the sword and had the feeling that his entire body was trembling. Boom! Lin Feng's brain started shaking again. That sword landed on the ground and slightly penetrated into it. A vortex of sword chi appeared and it seemed like everything else started dwindling in the foreground. The universe, the earth, and the ground seemed like they had disappeared. There was only one thing in the world, that sword. Just like in the Haruka temple, Lin Feng wasn't obtaining a skill or a technique. He was obtaining a memory, and in that memory there was only a vast and wild area. At the same moment outside the temple, the evil area started shaking again. Shui Wuchang remained in the air as the crowd was still standing in the same place. They were all watching as the scene changed again. Finally, it was shaking again. Was this the end? Last time that evil area had shaken there had been a great deal of changes. And then they were cut off from seeing what was happening. This time, everybody wanted to know what the results were. It was assumed that many people had died already and just as many had seized great opportunities. They were all extremely curious, but they had no choice but to wait. Perhaps, even Shui Wuchang didn't know what was happening. Sharp lights were twinkling in Shui Wuchang's eyes. He was fixated on the events in the evil area while talking to himself. The third temple opened, so the first round is finally over. I wonder who opened them, thought Shui Wuchang. Actually, going into the temples didn't count in itself. They couldn't be considered as opened when people had just taken the first skills. They were considered as opened only after 7 seeds had been exchanged for the greatest prize. Each time 7 were used, the area would shake. Bzz. A gigantic amount of qi started flowing in the atmosphere. The crowd only saw an enormous cloud of dust. It looked like the Judgment Day on the planet. Everybody was astonished. Their eyes were wide open. They could only watch what was happening. The hurricane then dispersed, and to everyone's disbelief, a flat area appeared. Some of the people were battling, others were practicing cultivation, but the ground was littered with corpses. The mysterious and mystical evil area had disappeared with the hurricane. Nothing was left. How intriguing and enigmatic, thought the crowd while shivering. They calmed down again and looked at those who were still alive. So many people had died during the first round and they were lying on the yellow ground. Now, there were maybe 60 or 70 people who were still alive. So about half of the initial candidates had died. How terrifying! So many incredible geniuses had been killed. All those geniuses that had died had, in the past, been dazzling cultivators respected by everybody. They had come excited, impatient, happy. They had hoped to become dazzling cultivators in the region or even the continent. But in the end, they had died and their bodies were already being devoured by worms. They had died away from home and hadn't said any farewells to their relatives. All right, the first round of the great competition of Shuiyu is over. Everybody can stop fighting, said Shui Wuchang. His voice rolled everywhere in the air so that everybody could hear him. Fighters immediately moved away from each other and stopped fighting. Back in the evil area, the temples had disappeared. The seeds cultivators had between their eyebrows also vanished. Fighting was now meaningless. Everyone looked left and right and saw that a certain number of participants were still alive. People at the top of the mountains were being particularly attentive. They were looking for the favorites they had come to see. Notably, those people who were members of wealthy and noble families and sects. Many of their faces became rigid as they couldn't find their disciples. They must have died. They were feeling like Yu Lu Shui, who had seen everything when his disciples died. They were also his real sons Yu Jian and Yu Qin, both killed by Lin Feng. Yu Lu Shui was looking for Lin Feng at this time to see if he was still alive. Quickly, he found Lin Feng sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. He looked calm and serene as he was cultivating. Yu Lu Shui was staring at Lin Feng coldly. But Han Man, Xiaoya and Pejun were smiling in a magnificent way. Lin Feng was safe. Yu Lu Shui, since you lost your 2 disciples, you have nothing to do here anymore. You should back to Shuiyu. Ha! Laughed Yu Qing Shan mockingly. Yu Tianming was safe and sound. Yu Tianming was still alive, just like Wu Qing. The people of the Wanshou sect were laughing too. Finally, the dangers of the first round were over. Wu Qing is extremely strong, he will definitely finish amongst the best ones in the final rankings, said someone next to Teng Wu Yao, which made him even more proud. Wu Qing deserved to be called the most dazzling disciple of our sect, I feel honored. For the Wanshou sect, seeing Wu Qing down there was an incredible honor. Even though the Wanshou sect had the reputation to be extremely strong in Shuiyu, they were absolutely unknown abroad. They were not that strong compared with others from different countries. Indeed. Back then Lin Feng resisted us and now he must be dead somewhere. What a pity. Wu Qing could have killed him himself. Yu Qing-shan looked strange when he heard Lin Feng's name. His grandson? Such a genius. Was he really dead? This time, from the 144 initial participants, only 69 were left. 75 had died. More than half had died. From all of the 4 empires of Shuiyu, there wasn't one who had lost more participants than the others. They had all lost about a dozen to 20 disciples. The strongest geniuses, including the 8 most dazzling cultivators of Shuiyu, were safe and sound. Yuemo looked cold. He was glancing around and very quickly found Lin Feng. He was just sitting cross-legged and meditating. He looked so calm and serene. Yuemo was even more upset because he felt Lin Feng had obtained another treasure and was practicing it at this moment. However, Yuemo, one of the 8 most dazzling geniuses of the competition, hadn't obtained that much. I hope that I find you during the second round, thought Yuemo, glaring at Lin Feng. If Lin Feng fought against him during the second round, he would have no hope. Same goes for Tang Yu. That girl had surprisingly dared attack him. Even though she was beautiful, he really wanted to kill her. At that moment, a silhouette was slowly walking towards Lin Feng. That person was staring at Lin Feng darkly, his face was filled with murder. That person was from Dragon Mountain and had lots of influence, Di Long. Back in the evil area he had really wanted to kill Lin Feng, but when he saw that Lin Feng had become too strong he had to give up. Give up then and wait for his opportunity later. When Di Long thought about it, he suddenly moved and threw himself at Lin Feng. His body was surrounded by deadly energy. He wanted to take advantage of the situation and kill Lin Feng. And then Lin Feng died. The end. But fine, maybe he comes back in the next chapter, but only if you leave me nice comments. *MW. Chapter 622, Regrets. Di Long was like a spear trying to impale Lin Feng. His pure chi was whistling all around as shot forward. Oh no, it doesn't look good. Han Man, Pajun and Xiaoya all thought when they saw that Di Long was attacking him by surprise. What a bastard! Shui Wuchang frowned. He had already told everybody that he wouldn't tolerate such things anymore. Yet, Di Long still dared attack in such a sly way. How audacious! Stop! Shouted Shui Wuchang furiously as a terribly oppressive energy spread in the air, but he was too far away from Di Long. The energy which flowed out of his mouth didn't reach Di Long. Di Long looked hideous as he attacked, but he didn't care because he was going to kill Lin Feng. Yuemo looked amused and smiled when he saw that. Di Long was a funny guy and quite audacious. He surprisingly dared attack Lin Feng. Many people were watching the scene. Boom! His fist suddenly crashed onto Lin Feng's body. Strong winds spread all around as Lin Feng's clothes were ripped apart. Lin Feng groaned and slightly shook. Ha! Di Long frowned. What was going on? He had just punched Lin Feng, but he had the feeling he had just punched an iron statue. A metallic sound was resonating. His fist had done nothing to Lin Feng. Everybody was astonished. Di Long's punch had been incredibly violent, but it seemed like Lin Feng had felt nothing. He didn't appear to be hurt at all. Lin Feng, sitting cross-legged, abruptly opened his eyes. Sword energy was twinkling in his fists and sharp lights were flashing in his eyes. He abruptly turned around and stared down Di Long. Lin Feng's sword energy suddenly oppressed Di Long. He had the feeling his body was going to be cut apart. Di Long's face then changed drastically. What was going? How come Lin Feng had such a monstrous sword energy? Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously, and a monstrous sword energy rolled in the air towards Di Long. He looked terrified as Lin Feng released some monstrous pure chi which formed into an extremely sharp sword. Xia! Xia! His sword energy penetrated into Di Long's body, making him shake violently. His muscles, including his facial muscles, were unceasingly twitching. How come Lin Feng had become so strong? Boom! All of Lin Feng's sword energy penetrated into Di Long's body. Di Long's body was entirely lacerated. The crowd was astonished. How was that possible? Di Long had attacked Lin Feng by surprise, who was only of the 5th Xianqi layer. But instead of perishing, Lin Feng had ended his life. It's because of the temple. It has to be. Many people were astonished. Lin Feng had become so strong in the temple. Pajun, Lin Feng has become so strong, said Han Man. He looked delighted and glanced at Pajun. Pajun nodded. Indeed, Lin Feng had become so much stronger than before, and only in such a short time. But in the distance, Yu Lu Shui lost his excitement. He had seen Lin Feng kill his 2 sons and hoped that Lin Feng would die there. Seeing how strong Lin Feng had become instead made him furious. 68 people, Di Long had just died, so there were 68 people left. Alright. The first round of the great competition of Shui Yu is over. The second round will consist of several battles. Those who are ranked amongst the first ones will fight against the last ones and vice versa. You have to think carefully about your strategy. I'm also giving you 1 day to rest. See you tomorrow at the Flood Dragon Cave, said Shui Wu Chang to the crowd, and then immediately left. Boom! A silhouette rose up in the air whose chi was monstrously strong. It was Di Long, the possessor of the firmament blood. He landed atop of a mountain as if nobody else had existed around him. Yuemo looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, "You better hope not to run into me during the second round." He then rose up in the air and released a terrifying, deadly energy. Lin Feng looked at him in an ice-cold way. Yuemo was, indeed, a terrifying opponent and was a real threat for Lin Feng. It seemed like he had no time to lose during the day before the second round. He had to understand the Haruka memories as well as the sword memories even more. 2 silhouettes moved towards Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu looked as cold and elegant as before, but something rare happened. She smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Did you get it?" "I did," said Lin Feng while nodding. He then looked at her and asked, "What about you?" "Same," said Tang Yuyu while smiling resplendently. They had both obtained memories from the temples. "It seems like you two obtained some amazing treasures," said Junimo Shi with a magnificent smile beaming at them. Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng seemed like they had gotten real close to each other during that first round. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu smiled. Then Lin Feng asked Junimo Shi, "What about you? Did you get anything?" "Well, I obtained 8 seeds, but unfortunately I didn't use them all. So I obtained various, relatively good things," said Junimo Shi while shaking his head. It seemed like he regretted that he hadn't obtained anything great, but that was expected. Almost everybody was the same as him. Lin Feng had taken huge risks to obtain 7 seeds and receive great treasures. If Tang Yuyu hadn't helped him, he would have surely died. "Alright, it seems like people from Dragon Mountain will be lucky this time," said Junimo Shi smiling. Immediately after, he rose up in the air and disappeared. "See you tomorrow," said Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. They then both rose up in the air as well and moved away into the distance. Lin Feng landed on a mountain. In the distance, he could see Xiaoya and 2 silhouettes. He was surprised but smiled. He was so happy. Those people wearing bronze masks looked strong with their robust chi. Lin Feng recognized his friends. "How come you're here?" asked Lin Feng. They both looked delighted. As expected, it really was Lin Feng. "We knew that you were going to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu, so we rushed over here to see you," explained Han Man, jumping towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched his fist and punched Han Man on the chest. "You've broken through to the 2nd Xianqi layer, not bad." "Ha!" Han Man smiled and said, "I'm still much weaker than you." Lin Feng shook his head and looked at Yu Lu Shui, who was watching him coldly. Lin Feng didn't feel at ease with Yu Lu Shui on the mountain next to him, releasing some evil chi. "Lin Feng, that bastard wanted to attack Xiaoya and us when you were down there," said Han Man, staring at Yu Lu Shui. "Did you see what happened inside?" asked Lin Feng. Han Man nodded and said, "At the beginning we could, but something strange happened and then we couldn't." Lin Feng just realized that he had been careless when he heard what Han Man said. He had killed Yu Qin and Yu Jian and had left Xiaoya outside alone. So, it was no surprise that Yu Lu Shui had wanted to kill him. "Are you looking for trouble?" asked Yu Lu Shui, jumping forwards. He was glaring at Han Man and the others. He had clearly heard Han Man call him a bastard. "Asshole, remember me? I will kill you with my own hands," said Lin Feng, looking evil. Lin Feng was calling him an asshole? "Just wait and see," said Lin Feng, not caring about Yu Lu Shui's surprised look. The head of the Yu clan was an ordinary cultivator of the 8th Xianqi layer, nothing more. Lin Feng just needed to understand the memories a little bit more and he might break through to the next Xianqi layer. Then he would be able to crush him without any difficulty. Lin Feng might have to wait until the end of the great competition of Shuiyu to kill Yu Lu Shui. Then he would go back to Shuiyu and exterminate the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect. Lin Feng then remembered those people from Tianfeng. He wouldn't forgotten about them. Chapter 623. The Sword Qi in the cave. Everyone was leaving the mountain chain to another place in Micheng, called the Flood Dragon Cave. However, some cultivators stayed to practice their cultivation. Lin Feng was one of those staying behind. After having spent some time with Han Man and Pajun, he had then handed Xiaoya over to them. They could take care of her. Lin Feng didn't want other people to see him spend too much time with Xiaoya. During the great competition of Shuiyu, he was going to kill even more cultivators, and that would offend their friends and families, who would then want to take their revenge. That would endanger Xiaoya, just like before with Yu Lu Shui. If they weren't strong enough to challenge Lin Feng, they would go to Xiaoya to exact their revenge. In the middle of the night, an eerie silence invaded the mountain chain. In a cave, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged with his eyes tightly closed. There was pallid light all around him. It was a sharp sword energy. Lin Feng was visualizing a vast area where the ground was made of lus, and there was that sword. There was that sword and only that sword in the world. It looked like a simple, pure and unadulterated sword. Lin Feng didn't look at anything else but that sword. He then penetrated into it, his body completely fused with that sword. It was nothing like the battle between good and evil when he was visualizing the Haruka statue in the temple. There were no incredible magical powers and incantations, there was only a very simple arid area and a sword. This memory was completely different from those of the Haruka. The Haruka's memories were constantly changing and were closely related to the impermanence of life. So Lin Feng challenged himself to understand the impermanence of life, the constant evolution of life. Without that mindset, it would be difficult for him to understand the essence and nature of the Haruka. But that sword looked calm and serene, absolutely immobile. Lin Feng understood that the sword was selfish and egocentric. It didn't want anything else in its world so that its user could only pay attention to it. That sword embodied and personified the origin of the universe. Lin Feng was still sitting cross-legged in the cave as sword energy penetrated and threatened his body. That thread of sword energy followed the sword Lin Feng was visualizing. That sword then slowly became stronger. It didn't release any monstrous qi that dashed to the skies. Small threads of qi were just moving step by step to it and making it stronger. After what seemed to be a long time, Lin Feng's sword energy started swallowing some lights which illuminated the cave all around. It seemed like there was a myriad of dazzling swords all around him. Sir, sir. Lin Feng's sword energy kept emitting whistling sounds that pierced into his ears. His sword was becoming stronger and stronger. The lights were extending all the way to the walls of the cave. It was extremely dazzling to behold. Some fissures were appearing on the walls of the cave where many small holes were being created. The sword qi was creating those fissures. Many more holes were appearing. Even the dust began to rise and float in the air. At the same time, outside of the cave on the 8 mountains, someone had jumped from the 8 mountains into the evil area. That person's skin was red, so they looked particularly evil in the middle of the night. That person stood there with an evil grin. They opened their mouth and took a gigantic mouthful of air. The corpses that were littered across ground flew into that person's mouth. He swallowed all the cadavers. He looked intoxicated, as if he had too much to drink. As expected, the taste of the geniuses' corpses of the great competition of Shuiyu was exquisite. Eating corpses enabled that person to increase his cultivation level. There was someone else standing at the top of one of the 8 mountains. He was observing the scene rather calmly, expressionless. He wasn't surprised by the human consumption. The technique which enables the Tiansha sect to use dead qi, isomerize it, and then turn it into pure qi is really incredible. That sorcery is incredible, but you aren't relying on your own qi though, said the one at the top of the mountain. He was smiling evilly. He had a commanding presence from the top. The other one was laughing coldly. He swallowed every single cadaver calmly. It can't turn into qi? Asked that person. He looked at Di Ling evilly. Di Ling, wait until the final battle at the great competition of Shuiyu. I will also swallow your body, then you won't say such things anymore, threatened Shui Sha arrogantly. Di Long groaned coldly, turned around and left. I will wait for you, said a voice in the distance, and then Di Ling disappeared into the darkness of the night. Shui Sha stayed there though and jumped back onto a mountain. In the darkness of the mountain chain there were many dark coffins flying unceasingly. In another place of the mountain chain, someone was sitting cross-legged and in a special state of mind. A pitch-black coffin that didn't emit any qi at all was on his side. Then the coffin slowly opened itself and a skeleton came out. The skeleton immediately grabbed the cultivator and pulled him into his coffin. In the middle of the night, a horrible shriek could be heard. But then the atmosphere became silent again. This wasn't the only one place. Many other shrieks could be heard, followed by an eerie silence. Shui Sha was calmly observing everything that was happening. He was smiling in a particularly evil way. His face was extremely white. The people of the Tiansha sect were happy to be in Micheng. They were eating all those cultivators practicing in the mountain chain. These cultivators were all delicious and full of nutrients. The coffins were slowly opening themselves to reveal skeletons that surprised and devoured unsuspecting cultivators. Ah! Blood splashed, a horrible shriek spread in the air which broke the silence of a cave. A skeleton had just stretched his hand out to grab a person who was practicing cultivation, but instead he had the feeling that he had grabbed the blade of a sword. His hand been cut. That sword energy was absolutely real. How was that possible? How could someone release such a terrifying sword energy? The coffin then moved back. He wanted to leave the cave, but suddenly a terrifying sword energy invaded the entire cave. Cutting sounds could be heard spreading in the air as the coffin was completely cut into pieces. A horrible shriek emerged again and the skeleton that was in the coffin was lacerated. The young man sitting cross-legged slowly opened his eyes. He looked expressionless. Then he closed his eyes again, looking absolutely unperturbed. The cave had become absolutely silent again. Outside of the cave, a coffin was precisely flying nearby and heard those shrieks. He was surprised. He signaled for 2 more coffins. They immediately turned around towards the place whence the horrible shriek had come. After a short time, they arrived next to the cave. Those 3 coffins didn't immediately enter the cave. They had decided to act slowly. The coffins slowly opened themselves and 3 silhouettes crawled out of them. They were extremely pale, livid and skinny. They gave the saying skin and bones another meaning. Their qi was absolutely evil. Those 3 monsters glanced at each other and entered the cave altogether. They saw a young man practicing cultivation. He was sitting cross-legged. At his side there was some sword qi, but it looked intangible. But then it transformed into a curtain and enveloped the young man so nobody could get near. One of the 3 undead walked forwards and bobbed his head as he spat out a monstrous evil qi which moved towards the young man. Sirasa. The evil qi penetrated into the curtain of sword qi and was minced. It immediately turned into smoke and then disappeared without leaving a trace. The 3 undead were astonished. That curtain made of sword qi was terrifying. The 3 people immediately moved back to leave the cave. Even though that cultivator had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, his battling abilities were monstrous. They couldn't compete with him and risk provoking him. Since you came, no need to leave, said Lin Feng. Immediately after he opened his eyes and a dazzling sharp sword twinkled in the atmosphere. What looked like a real sword then emerged out of his eyes and dazzled those 3 undead's eyes. Chapter 624. Sword intent. Those 3 froze there. They were surprised by Lin Feng. "Your Excellency, we didn't intend to provoke or disturb you, please forgive us," said one of the undead to Lin Feng, but remained oppressed by the sword intent. Lin Feng's strength was hard to determine, but even though the three of them had also broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, they knew they couldn't compete with him. "You didn't mean to bother me?" Lin Feng smiled coldly. If he hadn't maintained a curtain of sword qi, they would have tried to kill him. When they sensed that Lin Feng was releasing cold qi, their faces started looking cold. "Your Excellency, some things can be forgiven and everyone will be fine," said that undead again. He wanted everybody to forget about what had just happened. "I am now awake," said Lin Feng. Why do you need to try and convince him? All our comrades are everywhere in the mountains right now. If he dares touch us, he will offend all of them, then they will kill him and eat his corpse," said another one, coldly trying to scare Lin Feng away. The Tiansha sect? As expected, those three didn't look like human beings. Back then in Celestial River, Lin Feng had already seen those people and their evil skills. After Emotong Lan had left, they hadn't been a bit lost. The Tiansha sect had some cultivators of the Tianqi layer. Back then, Duan Wuya had actually sealed the soul of a cultivator of the Tianqi layer. So the undead who had just talked was trying to scare Lin Feng by officially declaring the name of his sect. Indeed, the Tiansha sect repeated the third one as if Lin Feng hadn't heard. Lin Feng slowly stood up, his sword qi whistled in the air and invaded the atmosphere. "I have already met people from the Tiansha sect in the past and killed them," said Lin Feng. In a flash, his sword qi invaded the entire cave and obstructed the exit. It was dazzling. Those three undead were astonished as their faces dramatically changed. The entire cave was filled with sword energy. It felt as if there had been millions of arrows inside. "How dare you?" said those three extremely loudly while they released some ice-cold qi. "Xia! Here!" His sword energy was unstoppable. Those three undead looked terrified and desperate. Boom! They started breathing heavily. The sword light was moving towards them. The walls of the cave were filled with holes created by the sword energy. As the lights closed in, their bodies disappeared. Lin Feng stretched his hand and the sword qi disappeared from the cave, but his eyes were still filled with sword lights. Sword determination, Lin Feng smiled in a resplendent smile. In the vast and arid area of the sword memories, he hadn't seen a monstrously powerful sword skill. He hadn't even seen a monstrously powerful magical power either. Instead, he had been learning about the origin of swords. He had learnt about the source of sword strength and thus sword intent. Back then, without realizing, he had broken through to the first layer of sword intent. But now that he had visualized the area and that sword in the desert, he had understood so much more. He had understood incredible, deep, profound, and mysterious things. Now, he had already broken through to the third layer of sword intent. Within a second, he could release millions of dazzling light swords with the power of his thoughts. Of course, it wasn't all due to the sword memories. In the preceding weeks, Lin Feng's pure qi had been constricted. He had then also understood many things. His cultivation level had increased. He had meditated with Xiaoya in the mountains. It was then that he had visualized things and practiced meditation. He had watched the sun rise and the sunset. Even though his cultivation had been limited at that time, he had progressed a lot because of it. Lin Feng stepped out of the cave. Although it was pitch dark outside, things were extremely calm. Lin Feng could sense that there was an evil qi in the distance though. And that evil qi was getting near him. He gazed into the distance and saw some pitch-black coffins radiating an evil qi. Tiansha sect, Lin Feng was standing on a stone, looking calm. He watched as the coffins flew towards him. After a short moment, they arrived in front of him with their thick, evil qi. "You dared kill the people of my Tiansha sect?" said a voice from the coffins. The coffins then opened themselves and several silhouettes crawled out of them. Their evil qi was terrifying and they were looking deathly pale. They were extremely skinny, like skeletons. Interestingly, their cultivation was higher than that of others their age. On the path of cultivation, not everyone had the same advantages and disadvantages. These walking corpses that still referred to themselves as humans looked truly abominable though. Your people wanted to kill me, so I killed them. I don't have time to play with you. If you want to kill me, don't blame me for being aggressive. Lin Feng challenged coldly. After that, his silhouette flickered. He had turned around and started leaving. He didn't want to fight. He just stepped on a sword light and surfed in the air on it. Those people from the Tian Sha sect were astonished. They went back into the coffins, which started emitting whistling sounds in the air as they began chasing Lin Feng. Lin Feng was streaking through the sky like a meteor. Not long after, he moved down and arrived in front of a cave. Without hesitation, he entered that cave. The cave was extremely deep. Some small pieces of stones and specks of dust were falling onto his head. The tunnel in the cave was irregular, like it had just been dug by someone. "Who?" shouted someone furiously. A silhouette was staring at Lin Feng coldly. That person wasn't happy to hear Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked back at that person. His sick-looking face was expressionless. There was a huge ancient room in that cave where some small lights could be seen. The entrance to that ancient cave had been obstructed with time. Lin Feng realized there wasn't only one person in that cave. There were two others digging in the ground as if they had wanted to unearth something. "I'm the same as you guys," said Lin Feng indifferently. That person coldly stared at him and said, "This cave is ours. You have nothing to do here, so please leave. You just arrived. How could it be yours? Are you joking? If you found some vestiges, it would be a miracle," said Lin Feng, shaking his head. How could a cave have an owner? They had just entered it and were still digging it. Lin Feng's words silenced the people who were still digging. They gathered together and looked at Lin Feng with what only could be described as discontent. That person suddenly wanted them to share their treasures with him, or what? Was he crazy? "It's a nice place. That's why he ran so fast," said some voice from behind Lin Feng. Some evil qi had just now penetrated into the cave. Everything suddenly became colder. Immediately after that voice spoke, a group of cadaveric people entered the cave. They glanced around and released some monstrously thick evil qi. That cave was surprisingly ancient. It seemed like it had a very rich history. The more ancient a cave was, the higher the chances of finding treasures. They had thought that Lin Feng wanted to escape, but instead he had left to find some treasures. "Ooh," said the three diggers while glaring at Lin Feng. They hadn't thought that he would bring such evil people along with him. Those people were from the Tian Sha sect and were all extremely strong. The people in the cave couldn't fight against them. If they tried, they would immediately die. "Since you said it's a nice place, make them leave immediately," said Lin Feng, moving aside. He crossed his arms against his chest and leaned on the wall of the tunnel, as if he had no problem at all. "You bastards! The cave is yours," said the three people while gnashing their teeth and then leaving. Their pure qi whistled as they started digging another hole in the cave and left. They were extremely good at digging holes. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.